The story begins in a dungeon, a large area filled with greenery. The people there, known as hunters, wear armor and chat amongst themselves. Suddenly, someone sneaks up behind them. It's a cat wearing a cloak, carrying a stick with a bag hanging from it. Everyone is shocked. The cute cat offers the humans a chance to check out the products he has brought. The hunters doubt that this dubious cat might be a peddler who sells drugs. Some in the dungeon adore the cute cat, while others ask what's in the bag. The little fella straightens his paws, and the product turns out to be little red cherry tomatoes. Yes, it may seem disappointing, but these are not your ordinary cherry tomatoes. One of the hunter guys looks at the red tomatoes with shiny eyes. He expects them to be some kind of weapon or a mysterious potion, but to his surprise, they're just pathetic, ordinary tomatoes that he could buy anywhere. He tosses a tomato to the peddler cat and walks away, but their disappointment doesn't last long. The peddler smirks, knowing how the foolish humans will react after seeing those ordinary-looking cherry tomatoes. The cat mutters that these are not average tomatoes and discloses the features that cause an uproar amongst the hunters. It seems the women hunters are more interested to know about the cherry tomatoes' features. The items turn out to be magic cherry tomatoes that increase magic by 0.01 point for 10 minutes. While others still find it less appealing, a woman hunter screams in disbelief. She reads that these magic tomatoes dissolve 10 grams of fat just by eating them. The peddler cat further convinces the humans by telling them how impressive this magic tomato is. He announces the selling price, which is 0.05 dungeon coins per tomato. Listening to this, a tumultuous roar comes from the crowd. People start gathering to buy the tomatoes. The little fella is astounded by the rising demand for the magic tomatoes. In no time, the cat sells out his magic tomatoes and seems as happy as ever. But then, a boy asks the cat where he got all the tomatoes, asking who produced them. The peddler cat smirks again, telling them it's a secret, and goes on his way. The next scene takes us to a tomato field. We see a young boy harvesting freshly ripened cherry tomatoes. The boy has harvested enough tomatoes for the day. A bunny carries a wheelbarrow filled with tomatoes. The farmer boy then takes a break and makes himself an energizing drink of fresh tomato juice with honey. He impressively squeezes the fresh tomatoes into a glass. The adorable honeybee pours some honey into his drink. He mixes the drink upside down and gulps it down. All the other bunnies enjoy their drinks in the little carrot molds. It looks like he's living in a magical world where all mythical creatures are helping him as a farmer. In the meantime, a quest pops up in front of the boy, ordering him to share his honey water with the dungeon administrator. Reading the quest, our boy makes an annoyed face. He says that he's done with this, when he finds out that there are no rewards. While hating the world, the peddler cat comes back and leaps onto the boy. He cuddles with him and calls him Sejuan. Sejuan becomes happy after seeing his cat, Theo, who had sold out all the magic cherry tomatoes. He brings a bag full of dungeon coins. It looks like they all work together, collecting those dungeon coins. Sejuan adorably pats the cat and offers him to become a CEO for a day, as he did an amazing job. Noticing the progress, our boy gets his hopes up high. He thinks that his name will be well known in the dungeon in no time. The cat gets motivated hearing Sejuan's clever thoughts, and without wasting a second, he gets back to the grind to make more money for him. On his way, Theo asks the black bunny for his weekly compensation and returns to work. Suddenly, Sejuan gets reminded of something very significant that he seems to have forgotten. He picks up a rock and marks something on the wall. The wall is filled with marks that show that Sejuan is keeping a record of something. He smiles and says that it's been 50 days in the dungeon. Before we dive deeper into the story, it is revealed to us that Sejuan Park is a farmer. He has been trapped in this dungeon that he stumbled in 50 days ago and has not escaped since then. After this, the farmer boy returns to work, heading to the tomato field where the bunnies seem to work. The next scene flashes back to 10 years ago in Seoul, unfolding how it all started. One fine day, a black 99-story tower appears out of nowhere in the downtown city of Gangnam. Not only that, 100 such towers have appeared in different cities around the world. Well, this alarming situation occurred not only in Seoul, but in all parts of the world. They discovered only one thing while investigating the towers that had enclosed dungeons inside them. In each country, all the towers were 990 meters high. They were highly durable and resistant to nuclear bombs. Then all of a sudden, people started to walk out of the dungeons through their walls. This was another miracle that gained attention all over the country. The news reporters were flummoxed by this splendor and started questioning those who had come out of the dungeons. One of the boys appeared through the walls. He revealed that he got sucked into the black hole. He found himself on the floor of the dungeon after waking up. This news spread like wildfire. The people who recently went missing turn out to have vanished from the black hole into the dungeon. The people who were sucked by the wormhole and left the dungeons through their walls are known as the First Awakened. Moreover, the missing people were found in dungeons all across the globe. We also get to know that the 100 dungeons that have appeared are all connected. As people enter these dungeons, they awaken on the first floor. They are assigned to work either as a warrior or a wizard. To their surprise, they're rewarded each time they move up a floor or clear a quest. It does not end here. The boy, who is reporting all the secrets of the dungeons, flaunts a golden and shiny ticket he's holding. Curious, the reporter asks him about the ticket. The boy explains that people like him, who have already gone through awakening, can move in and out of the dungeons freely. However, for ordinary people to enter the dungeon, they need this ticket as an entry pass. The reporters are left in utter confusion and ask him if people will buy this ticket just to walk into this terrifying dungeon full of monsters. To settle this mystery, one of the girls who also came back from the dungeons unexpectedly opens a box. Hundreds of coins start falling like a cascade. She reveals that while the purpose of the dungeons remains a mystery, one thing is for sure. Moving up in dungeons is lucrative. I mean, who wouldn't want that ticket now? After seeing the pile of golden coins the girl accumulated in the dungeon, after witnessing the lucrative amount people had been rewarded in the dungeons, the Awakened Association announced a drastic increase in the black dungeon tickets, moving from 150 million to 200 million yuan, one that were to begin next week. Hundreds of people signed up for this ticket, waiting to purchase it and enter the dungeons before the price increases. As a lady at the checkout watches the news, she is stunned by the ticket prices. The world seems to be going out of control for that ticket, risking their lives to go into the dungeons. The lady seems to share her thoughts with this young boy at the counter, who turns out to be our guy, Sijuan. Sijuan completely thinks the opposite. After he gets out of the grocery store with a bag of veggies, he checks out his balance after being done with student loan payments and rent. He also seems to be saving up for the black dungeon ticket. He had saved up to 12 million yuan for the ticket, but seems discouraged because the prices can get higher anytime, and he won't be able to afford it. As our boy wanders in the streets, he glances at the black tower. The sun sets, and he presumes if he will ever get the chance to enter the dungeon. But then, a spark of motivation lightens him, and he thinks of ways to spend less money, just as he bought these green veggies at a discount. His thoughts get wilder when he thinks of growing his own vegetables, taking inspiration from his favorite girl idol, Sarah of the Moonlight Lovers, who is a brand ambassador of the Smart Garden brand. Sijuan gets excited, thinking if he saves enough money to buy a ticket, things will certainly work out, and he will be able to conquer the dungeons. Let's be real, money can make us delusional, and we start daydreaming about the weirdest of things, just like Sijuan, who thought of proposing to his favorite girl group member, Sarah, after conquering the dungeons. But his freaky thoughts are interrupted by a black hole that starts to appear behind him. The hole keeps getting bigger, and Sijuan's daydream bubbles are busted when he looks back. Instead of being petrified, he is flaring with happiness. As the black hole tries to suck him in, he's all fired up and decides to dedicate his life to climbing that dungeon. But his dreams begin to shatter when the hole begins to disappear. Without any thought, our guy runs toward the black hole with all he's got and invites himself into the dungeon. He couldn't miss that lifetime opportunity and pitched himself in the hole. After that, he stumbles into the dungeon on his face, thinking of a beautiful place. When he opens his eyes, he imagines it decorated with fancy chandeliers, marble floors, or equipment. Sijuan looked around with extreme happiness, only to find a big, empty pit he'd fallen into that looked nothing like he had imagined. He cries out in disbelief and doubts if he is in the right place. But nothing can be undone. Our poor guy is once again hit by reality. As he enters the dungeon, a crystal ball starts to glow, detecting signs of abnormal activity inside the dungeon. The dungeon administrator, who turns out to be a black dragon, goes out to find the cause. The next scenes take us to the new sensations, the awakenings that have taken over the internet, as people interview them about the experience and ask them about the inside structure of the Black Tower. A girl describes the first floor of the dungeon as a dazzling palace and lets out that there are many stores where they can buy items like potions to use in the dungeons. Meanwhile, another boy reveals that the training center is the highlight of the first floor because it's a survival skill they need to get stronger to fight monsters on the second floor. Sijuan snaps out of his moment of contemplation. He had heard about it on the internet, but none of them seems to exist in that dungeon. Realization hits him. He sits there, After spending hours searching every corner for an exit, stores to buy items, or training centers. But nothing exists. Our poor boy even shouts, crying for help. He thinks he is lost, but no one comes to his rescue. As he thinks about it, his morning alarm goes off. Sejun had spent a day in a dungeon without cell service. Yet his stomach starts growling. He looks over the veggies he had bought earlier. The bag had 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 7 sweet potatoes, 10 green onions, and an apple. After eating an apple, which seemed a delight for breakfast, and a raw sweet potato that tasted extremely sweet and crunchy, our boy fills his stomach with what he calls a decent meal. After the meal, he lays down with literally nothing to do in the dungeon. He thinks to himself that he cannot stay here longer. He has to find a way before he runs out of food and starves to death. Sejun even thinks of turning into a dry mummy if he doesn't get rescued on time. But the bad thoughts couldn't overpower his optimistic energy, and he starts to think of ways to survive in the dungeon by any means. As he thinks of the dungeon as a land of miracles, he glances at the apple seed he had eaten. He picks up the apple seed, picks out green onion roots, some tomatoes, and sweet potato plants. He plants them inside the soil and pours water on them. This fellow seems proud of himself and is extremely motivated that he can survive until these plants bear fruit. He excitedly looks over the planted vegetables that will be his mode of survival in the future. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise coming from the dungeon. Sejun gets startled, thinking it might be monsters. To his surprise, he witnesses a blue moon as the light shines over him. As the shrieking gets louder and scarier, our guy seems to struggle as his body starts to feel weaker. Petrified by the situation, he suddenly catches a glimpse of a black dragon gliding in the sky as the solar eclipse occurs. He peeks at the black dragon and thinks how beautiful he is. But before he can believe his eyes, our boy suddenly collapses and falls to the ground. After a while, Sejun's phone alarm starts buzzing, and he finally wakes up. He grabs his phone and is flabbergasted when he finds out that he was passed out for 2 whole days. Feeling shocked, he gets up and finds himself in pain with an intensely sore back, and his body feels a lot weaker and exhausted. As he sits by the big plant, he notices something. His body pains go away in a second. After witnessing the green onions he planted grow into huge plants, Sejun couldn't help but think how all this was possible. The green onions had grown so fast in those 2 days. He thinks to himself that it might be possible that something in the dungeon must have impacted the plant's growth, because he had seen on TV that plants can change their behavior in different habitats or climates. Our boy moves on to watch the other crops. He looks at the cute little sprouts from the tomato seeds that have grown out of the soil. The green onion plants are blocking their sunlight. Our fella then starts harvesting those tough and big green onion plants, thinking how they taste. He happily crunches on the green onions. Suddenly, the spice kicks in, burning his mouth on fire. His head is about to explode from green onions that were spicy as hell. In that moment of pain, he dunks his face right into the water stream. Our guy's taken aback by the concentrated flavor of the green onions, as they are double spicier than the normal ones. He decides to eat the rest of them when he craves spicy food, eating his leftover cherry tomatoes. In the next scene, it is revealed to us that the sun never sets in the dungeon. Each floor of the dungeon experiences a solar eclipse, and this phenomenon is known as a blue moon. However, it only occurs on the 10th floor and above, which makes Sejun believe that he is not on the 1st floor, as he did witness a blue moon. While chewing on his raw sweet potato, he also thinks of that black dragon that appeared in the sky during the blue moon, assuming that he was not imagining things. This takes us back to 10 years ago when the Black Tower came into existence. Through the years, many guilds have come into form. One of them is Phoenix, which is the largest guild that recently cleared and moved up to the 37th floor. In contrast, the other guilds are extremely cautious regarding the information on the 31st to 37th floor, considering it highly confidential. However, the information about the sub-13 floors is loaded on the internet for marketing, which reveals that floors 2 through 10 are swarming with skeletons, 11 through 20 of goblins, and 21 through 30 are charged with ogres. The 31st floor is rumored to have spiders. While different kinds of monsters occupy all the floors, no one has ever mentioned a dragon, which leads Sejun to speculate that he might have been mistaken. He wonders what floor he is on. He looks up at the sky and thinks maybe he's stuck on a floor that even top warriors can't reach. His moment of contemplation is suddenly interrupted when something drips on his face. Thinking that it might be raining, a little creature emerges from the dungeon. It turns out that a cute little bunny is peeking at him. It leaps towards him. The drooling bunny hovers over his head, rushing towards the green onion plants. Sejun assumes that he is not an average bunny and trims off a green onion plant, giving it to the adorable bunny to eat. As the bunny eats the plant, our boy looks over his green onion plants that have grown bigger. He feels the need to trim them twice a day. While he eats his veggies, the cute bunny starts sounding like it is communicating with someone. It looks like another bunny has joined Sejun to eat his farm crops. The bunny jumps into the cave like a ninja, wearing a classy hat and a tiny apron, carrying a watering can. It seems like an adorable team of farmers has come to assist him. Our boy looks on in utter astonishment and realizes that they are a couple. Our poor boy, who is all alone in a dungeon, is joined by a bunny couple. Sounds like bunnies have a stroke of better luck at love than our poor boy. The sun is flashing brightly over the cave, and the plants keep thriving every day. The cute bunny couple begin working on the fields as they chop the outgrown green onions, water the plants, and seem to enjoy working together as they sing along. Meanwhile, our lonely guy sits back and watches the view of the bunny couple working together with love and harmony, thinking they look good together. Lost in thought, he figures something out. It turns out that the bunny couple wants to live with him in the cave. Baffled, he reconsiders his decision and hesitates to keep the bunnies along with him. However, the bunnies are hellbent on staying as they try to convince him, and they come up with a super clever trick. With their eyes fixated on Sejun, they start staring at him with their big, sparkly eyes and adorable fur faces that no one could resist. Our soft-hearted fella couldn't handle the quirky cuteness that struck his heart, and eventually, he agreed to their request. But he settles on to implore something in return and does not let them stay with him for free. He asks them to help with farming. As the bunnies are already watering the plants and cutting the green onions, farming seems to be their profession, and so the bunnies gladly accept the offer. The sheer happiness gets a little frantic when the bunnies leap towards Sejun, conferring him with the most adorable hug, melting his heart. This unprepared attack of the cuddles with soft fur was the ultimate plan of the bunny couple to trick Sejun. He gets the feeling that he'd been used and fallen into the trap of sweet bunny cuddles, but inside, he is bursting with joy. Later, the bunny duo returns to the grind, while Sejun catches sight of the equipment the bunnies are using. He realizes that the bunnies are using magical items in farming. The hubby bunny is using a sprinkler that never runs out of water, while the wifey bunny is wearing an apron with a magic pocket, noticing that it provides farming equipment like scissors and a shovel when needed. Our boy gets jealous, as he cannot even buy or utilize these magical items, but he wishes to have them. In the meantime, the bunny couple finishes up their farming work. Sejun inspects their work. Looking at the field, the sweet potatoes had not sprouted yet, while the cherry tomato leaves had been growing fast. He wonders if it was all because of the bunnies and their magic items. As things seem to be done, the bunny couple looks desperately with those adorable puppy eyes towards Sejun. They're asking if they're allowed to stay with him. Our fella excitedly announces that they have passed the test. The bunnies' excitement goes over the roof as they celebrate cheerfully. Soon after they end their celebration, the bunnies rush to the cave wall and start digging the soil. The wifey bunny makes a beautiful flower wreath for their tiny door. The hubby bunny seems to build a small, beautiful home for themselves. Looking at the tiny home, Sejun compliments the hubby for his incredible speed as he built the house in the blink of an eye. The wifey then sneaks up on her husband and taps his shoulder, giving a tempting smirk. After all, the couple needs some alone time. The wifey bunny drags her husband into the tiny house. Our boy Sejun nervously wishes him luck. Deep down, the poor fella feels jealous of the bunny couple, sobbing inside. But he manages to make himself feel better by the thought that he's not alone anymore. He's exhilarated to let the bunnies join him in the cave to help him with farming. And there's something enjoyable, so at least he won't get bored to death. He lays on a trimmed green onion plants that seem plushy. As he is about to get all comfy, smoke begins coming out from the plants. Sejun jumps abruptly and loses his nerves when he feels his back getting too hot and has caught fire. Our boy flings himself onto the ground, spinning like a rolling pin to put out the fire. Going through that whirlwind, and a moment later, something grabs his attention. Our boy notices that dried green onions have scorched on fire. Reckoning how it might be possible, he then peeks at the plastic bottle in sight. It reflects the sunlight directly into the dried plants. An idea sparks inside his genius head. Sejun suddenly transforms, as if he's shooting a survival tutorial video. He starts acting like he's stuck in the middle of a forest, trying to light the fire for survival. Being dramatic, he starts narrating that living in the Black Tower is tough, but he fails to give up. He confidently flaunts his water bottle and dried green onions, continuing the tutorial like a pro scientist. Our boy utilizes the plastic bottle as a lens to focus sunlight onto dried leaves to ignite a fire. It looks like our very own Sejuan survival tutorial on how to start a fire is going to break the internet. But before that could happen, he's again punched by reality. Our boy holds the bottle with extreme determination. He concentrates the sunlight onto the dried green onion leaves. But it looks like his tutorial backfires miserably as it doesn't seem to work, leaving him in agony. Sejuan gives it his all to produce the fire, but it only forms smoke. All day, and after several tries, he feels extremely unambitious, sighing relentlessly. Our boy sits there like an old hat, as if he had lost everything, looking exhausted. He thinks of every possible mistake he might be making during the process. But as he is about to give up on his efforts, he witnesses something inside the plant, a little hope of kindling the fire. And in that moment, he activates his dynamic once again. In that moment of enthusiasm, the bunny couple walks out of their tiny house. Well, it looks like the wifey bunny had sucked her husband dry, giving a cheeky smirk, while the poor hubby bunny is barely able to walk. They glance over Sejuan, who is pondering on his dilemma. While he sucks out all the air in him onto the dried leaves, trying to light the fire, he fails again, wretchedly. In the meantime, the bunnies come to his rescue. Sejuan asks the hubby bunny to blow air on the green onion straw. The bunny puts all his efforts and blows air with his small and delicate mouth, while Sejuan, with a strong sense of hope and excitement, holds the plastic bottle with full concentration and chants with all his strength to start that damn fire. In the end, all that he strived for was worth a shot, as the dried leaves catch a big blaze of fire. Our boy is over the moon. Now that the blazing fire is ready, Sejuan, with his steady hands, cooks the green onions on the flames. He grills his green onions, feeling thrilled as ever. He peels off the burned outer layer and, finally, crunches on the beautifully cooked green onions. As soon as he takes a bite, he feels a shiver down his spine. The green onions that were once spicy as hell now tasted scrumptiously sweet. Munching on a hot, freshly cooked food, you can see the sparkle in his eyes and the joy on his face. With the sweetness of the green onions bouncing in his head, the taste makes him feel on top of the world. His imaginations run wild, as he feels like a wild green horse is running across the Great Plains on his tongue. I mean, his imaginations are weird as hell, but let's bear with it because our boy had eaten a good meal after a long time. The bunnies stare at Sejuan as he enjoys his food and get curious. So, they start roasting their green onions. After grabbing a bite, the bunnies are hooked by the overly sweet and palatable green onions. They are delighted by the utterly rich taste. As the survival diary of Sejuan continues, it was the first time in a while in that dungeon he had eaten a fresh, hot meal to his fullest before going to bed. The next day, our boy wakes up in his bed. It is assembled with green onion straws. He stretches himself and washes his face with fresh pond water. Approaching the field, he sees that his plants have grown quite big. The green onions are trimmed, and the cherry tomatoes, which have sprouted into bigger plants, are watered. All the work has been done. The morning checklist seems to be complete. Our boy feels happy. Sejuan then narrates the story of things that have occurred in the dungeon lately. He managed to craft torches with woven green onion straws to light the cave. More light made it easier for them to use more space in the cave. Sejuan eventually found creative ways to survive in the dungeon, like a cave person. Walking toward the pond, he decides to place torches there, as it gets much darker in that area. Sejuan and the bunnies agree. Our boy spots something in the pond. The water forms bubbles. Suddenly, a piranha fish splashes out of the water, startling him. He screams at the sudden strike. The fish lands on the ground, flapping hard to survive. Sejuan thinks to himself that he has never seen a fish in the pond before and assumes that the light of the flames might have drawn their attention. Despite all the thoughts, our boy finally realizes that he has now found protein to eat in the cave and does not have to rely on vegetables for his food. Without any delay, he starts cooking the fish on the blazing fire right away. It is wrapped in green onion leaves. He enjoys the savory protein meal while the bunnies watch him eat. He shifts his attention from the fish to the bunnies, who are drooling over the scrumptiously looking fish. He asks them if they want to eat it too. Therefore, he ascertains that these are not ordinary bunnies, but dungeon monsters. He shares the meal with them. Some days later, the blue moon appears again in the dungeon, as the boy continues to narrate the story. It is revealed to us that, while spending many days in the tower, Sejun has come to observe that the blue moon rises every 30 days, more like every month. All this time, he has been counting his days in the dungeon on the phone and laptop, but ultimately, he runs out of batteries with no access to a phone or electricity in the cave. He starts carving on the cave wall with a rock, keeping the record and track of dates. It looks like 61 days had already passed in the dungeon, and not one day passed by without marking the wall. Living in the cave for a long time now, Sejun had been following a proper routine. The good thing was that bunnies were super strict with their schedule, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and sleeping at 6 o'clock in the evening sharp. While Sejun is cooking fish, there's no one to disrupt his midnight routine. He's only able to maintain his peace by following the bunny's routine. We also learned that the farmer gang recently received good news. The bunny couple had kids. As the hubby opens the door, 5 adorable baby bunnies scamper out. They leap onto Sejun. He excitedly welcomes the little ones to join his team. Well, the dungeon has been a roller coaster ride for Sejun. It's funny how he has become an uncle to cute baby bunnies now. Later, the hubby bunny, who hardly got any sleep, walks out of his house looking exhausted from parenting. Our boy suggests the bunnies get some rest. He tells them to have some breakfast while he takes care of the baby bunnies. Our boy, who is super thrilled to watch over the baby bunnies, glances at the cherry tomato flowers that have thrived. To his surprise, the entire garden has blossomed with flowers. So far, the flowers have been pollinated manually to bear fruit. Sejun gets tired of squatting and inspecting the flowers every day. He wishes bees could fly to his farm to pollinate his flowers, but his thoughts seem far-fetched. Meanwhile, one of the baby bunnies starts sniffing the flowers. He stuffs his face inside, inhaling the pollen into his nose. He lets out the most adorable sneeze. Sejun holds the baby bunny. He looks over at the cherry tomato flowers, witnessing that they have borne fruit. It seems like their hard work has finally started to pay off. Our boy, along with the baby bunnies, begins to dance out of sheer joy. Eventually, the day of the blue moon leaps forward. Our boy takes all the necessary precautions to get through the solar eclipse. He puts out the fire and makes camouflage out of green onion leaves. He wears it to keep him warm. He takes a look at the sky, waiting for the eclipse to begin soon. The bunnies get inside their house and wave goodbye, thinking it will be a piece of cake. Our boy hopes to survive the blue moon and make it out alive. Shortly, the solar eclipse occurs. Spine-chilling and creepy voices echo through the dungeon. This fella hides himself in the corner of the cave, feeling anxious. As the blue light beams over the cave, he sits fearfully in the corner. He wraps his hands around his ears to cancel out the noise. However, Sejun already feels drained. He hides himself in the corner, thinking that he had removed all the smelly stuff, just in case, to save himself from any kind of trouble. Waiting for the blue moon to halt, he feels like time has stuck and is barely passing. As the howling and screeching continue, the boy starts shivering in fear. He can hear them from a distance. He hopes to survive the never-ending solar eclipse safely. He abruptly hears a thundering noise approaching the cave. Petrified, he speculates about the source of the loud sound. It is revealed that a colossal red monster, with claws big enough to slice a person into pieces, is approaching the cave, roaring. It turns out to be an aggressive bear, standing above the cave with Sejun in sight. As soon as Sejun captures the monster's dangerous sight, his heart starts pounding swiftly. The red monster spots him in the cave, giving him a deadly stare. Sejun starts trembling with fear, with nowhere to run. He decides to act smartly and tries to hide deeper into the corner before the bear can notice him. Sejun valiantly scoots over with furtive and steady steps. As everything seems to be going pretty smoothly, he grabs his bag. But all of a sudden, everything in his bag comes crashing down on the ground. His laptop, cherry tomatoes, and water bottle fall to the floor, and it looks like he is doomed with nowhere to run. Sejun stares in terror as he looks to the top of the cave. He witnesses the bear trying to leap into the cave. Sejun starts screaming as loud as he can, with his mouth wide open, as the monster comes crashing into the cave, leaping toward him with its big fangs. Well, it looks like the red bear has found himself a fresh meal. Later, Sejun is found blacked out on the floor, and the bunnies gather around him, waking him up. Lying unconsciously, he gets slapped by the wifey bunny, who wakes him with a mighty whack on his face, startling him. He wakes up screaming like a maniac. His mind immediately flips to the moment when he almost gets killed by the bear. It seems like Sejuan passed out for quite a long time because every part of his body hurts badly. Recalling the moment when the monster showed up at the cave, leaping toward him and nearly killing him, he starts to get the chills. The thought sends chills down his spine as he shivers with fear. The bunnies light up the fire while Sejuan warms himself up and covers himself with a blanket made out of green onion straws. He is then accompanied by the bunny couple, who cuddle with him, getting all comfy and warm sitting by the fire. The wifey bunny cooks him fish. Munching on the freshly cooked meal, he considers all the possibilities as to how the red monster came this way. Like it must have sensed this place, or left after feeling another monster's energy, or maybe it couldn't fit in the small cave opening. He realizes that monster had every chance to kill him, so maybe he was saved by someone. Nonetheless, he finds himself lucky to survive, but he also speculates that this tragedy can happen again, and he can lose his life. Holding his half-eaten fish, he gathers his optimistic energy. He becomes proud of how far he has come in the dungeon. So, he decides not to give up, raising his spirit to eat well and survive in the meantime. The bunny signals him, try to tell him something. As they all walk towards the farm, they witness a big blue tomato. Amused that it had grown overnight, Sejuan peeks at the blue tomato with astonishment. Curious, he plucks the blue fruit. Suddenly, a screen pops up in front of him. It looks like the blue tomato that Sejuan had harvested is filled with blue moon energy. At one glance, he identifies that it's a notification window. The notifications are being sent by the black dragon from before, who is also the dungeon administrator. The administrator informs him that it's watching him closely, frowning at him, and is proud of his remarkable achievement. While Sejuan processes all the mixed feelings, the dungeon admin reveals a dark truth unknown to him. The administrator says that our guy is an uninvited guest in the dungeon, which means he was never awakened, and it was a mistake that he got sucked into the tower. Listening to this, his world turns upside down, and he's crushed by the thought that his access to the dungeon is a mistake. Come to think of it, our boy dives right into the black hole as he's crazy about raiding dungeons. So, it's not exactly the admin's fault. As he seems to get done with this, our boy gets furious as he had been working his butt off on the farm for the past 30 days. Blowing up with fury, Sejuan demands to be sent back home if his access to the dungeon is a mistake. After a moment, the notification comes up again, and the dragon blackmails him to kill him to remove the evidence of the mistake the admin had committed. Yelling through the screen, our boy makes it clear that he cannot remove him after his thriving progress on the farm. Getting too worked up, our fellow reconsiders his tone of voice and calms his nerves down a bit. Another notification comes up, and this time, it's not about killing him. The dungeon dragon finally sends something good his way as he determines to awaken him. Everything around him gets magical. Sejuan is staggered by the news that he's officially being awakened, which itself is a great win for him. However, it doesn't stop here. When the administrator assigns him an occupation, he stares at the screen with his big, shiny eyes, hoping that he will be assigned to be a wizard since he's so smart. The admin bursts his bubble. Unfortunately, he is assigned to become a farmer. This gets even worse when the obnoxious dungeon dragon lists down his occupational traits, which include that he will not fall ill, become friends with nature, and earn rewards by harvesting crops. Left in disbelief, he is now officially a farmer. It seems like his fate is already decided. Moments later, he peeks at his status record on the screen. It complies with his talent as an average Joe, being titled as an ordinary person. He imagines himself in a TV show, where the host introduces him as the average Joe who cleared the dungeon. He proudly admits that he's a farmer. Imagining himself in that cringy scenario, he teleports back to reality. Screaming in disbelief, with emotions so strong, he exasperatingly attempts to smash that blue magic tomato on the ground. But he halts when he peeks at the bunny gang, shockingly staring at his tantrums. Our boy then takes a look at his farm that he worked so hard to grow, the blazing fire that cooks meals. And so he comes to realize that he has come so far, surviving and exploring in this dungeon. Casting a blissful look at the farm, he accepts his fate, considering if he should live as a farmer all his life. In the meantime, another notification winds up on the screen, giving information about the magic blue tomato. It is known to us that blue magic tomatoes are full of taste and nutrients. They increase magic by 0.05 points permanently when consumed, grown by Sejuan Park. Our fellow then comes to affirm that these blue magic tomatoes are items, and they're going to boost his stats gradually. Sejuan seems to be proud of himself, and the farm he worked so hard to grow. He shows his gratitude to the bunnies, as they've helped much in growing the plants. While he celebrates his joyous moments, the dungeon dragon sneakily peeks at our jolly fella through the screen, and it looks like it's planning to do something evil. As all of this happens, another notification befalls, and it seems to be a new quest for Sijuan. His quest is to offer the magic tomato to the administrator. By doing so, he will be rewarded with one occupational skill. But the consequence for declining the quest is death. It looks like the administrator wants to get rid of Sijuan for good and hide the mistake it has committed. Our boy reads the quest and freaks out after reading the consequences, which strike terror into him. He begins to wonder if it's really a life-death situation. As the new quest comes up, our boy gets low-key terrified, thinking that the admin is trying to threaten him. The admin brings pressure to bear on Sijuan as he gets swayed by the shocking threat of declining the quest. Surrendering himself, he bows down in respect and serves the magic cherry tomatoes to the screen. The tomatoes teleport through the screen, and our boy finally completes his quest. Sighing with relief, he nearly forgets about the reward and taps to open it, eagerly waiting for the well-deserved reward, as Sijuan wonders how generous the admin is. The reward turns out to be an occupational ability. This ability increases the chance of his seed sprouting. Disappointment begins to manifest as he realizes that he's now adhering to the farmer's life. Later that day, as the sun shines brightly, our boy hunts down fish, piranhas, with his woven fire flame torch. He earns points for smacking them for survival. Killing 5 piranhas in a row earns Sijuan 10 XP. The boy narrates that awakening has helped him earn experience points, as killing piranhas for survival made him jump to level 2. Wishing to kill more piranhas, he decides not to hunt more fish for the sake of points. He's thinking that his major source of protein might go extinct if he keeps killing them. While he prepares the beautifully cooked fish, he calls upon the bunnies to join the meal. The baby bunnies rush towards him. He divides the fish among the bunnies, as their appetite seems to grow with their size, and hands out 2 cooked fish to the bunny couple. Munching on the deliciously cooked meal, our boy learns about the hidden truth about the bunnies. It is revealed to us that the bunny couple are white farmer bunnies, which are dungeon monsters and specialize in farming, as the name suggests. They are not well-known monsters in the dungeon, and for that reason, people don't know about them in the real world. Sijuan speculates about how the farm bunnies ended up in the cave, assuming they would have lost their farm, and thinks about how they can return home. The language barrier between him and the bunnies makes him ponder and wish to communicate with them. Wrapping things up, our boy announces that it's a big day at the farm today. The farmer bunnies get pumped up. Upon arriving at the farm, they notice beautiful cherry tomatoes have finally ripened, and they are left in awe. The fully ripened cherry tomatoes have blossomed on the farm. This is the moment Sijuan and the farmer bunnies were waiting for. While the bunnies are springing with happiness, our boy gets overwhelmed as tears of joy stream down his face. He believes that he finally achieved the fruits of his hard work and sweat, because now they get to harvest the fruit they've grown. Recalling the blue magic tomato harvest, Sijuan carefully approaches the red tomatoes as his hands start to shake. The bunny's eyes fixate on him. With his heart pounding fast, he plucks out the red cherry tomato, a perfectly ripened fruit that he had harvested. It turns out that these red cherry magic tomatoes are items that he had grown on his farm. Sijuan will earn rewards for every ripe tomato he harvests. It is known that the magic cherry tomatoes are full of nutrients and taste. Consuming these tomatoes dissolves 10 grams of body fat. It also increases magic energy by 0.01 point for 10 minutes. These tomatoes can be consumed up to 10 at a time, as they each dissolve 10 grams of fat and give you energy. Grabbing that magic fruit, our boy, Sijuan, is surprised when he finds out that the cherry tomatoes can increase magic energy. Sijuan continues to harvest the ripened magic cherry tomatoes and keeps earning rewards. Meanwhile, he harvests the red cherry tomatoes and stumbles upon an unripened tomato. As he plucks out the unripened tomato, he doesn't get any rewards or additional points. Realizing that it's not a special item, but just an ordinary tomato, he carefully harvests only the ripe ones to earn rewards. After a long day of harvesting cherry tomatoes, as his everyday job, our guy finally gets to taste the fruit he's grown. Tossing a cherry tomato into his mouth, he catches a glimpse of angry bunnies frowning at him for not sharing the tomatoes with them. They assert that they all worked hard growing the farm. Our guy apologizes to the bunnies and shares plenty of unripened cherry tomatoes with the bunny gang, so they can enjoy them together. Now that the bunnies have gotten their share, They celebrate the successful tomato harvest. Sejun tosses a cherry tomato into his mouth. His mouth bursts with flavors, blowing his mind. It seemed like the mesmerizing, sweet, tangy flavor of the cherry tomatoes had reminded him of a summer night. The nostalgic and breathtaking flavor of the tomatoes brought back memories and left him teary-eyed. The bunny couple stares at him with bafflement, while the baby bunnies play around with the cherry tomatoes. In the meantime, the white bunny farmers reserve their cherry tomatoes in storage, covered with green onion plants, as they work together. Sejun peeks at this adorable sight, watching the kids helping the parent bunnies store the cherry tomatoes. He reckons that they're babies of farmer bunnies, after all, so it's in their bones. Feeling drained, he compliments their good work and finally gets some sleep in his comfy bed and blindfold made out of green onion straws to have a productive day, and quickly dozes off. Meanwhile, he gets some quality sleep, but a new quest befalls him. Tossing and turning, our guy doesn't let anyone disturb his sleep. Suddenly, the screen buzzes and produces a loud noise, scaring the hell out of Sejun, destroying his peaceful sleep. He furiously finishes off his quest, which is to offer 100 magic cherry tomatoes to the dungeon administrator. The admin gets happy as our guy flings the tomatoes through the screen and the quest gets completed. Thinking of the reward as a forced lottery draw, he wishes to gain a useful ability for once. As soon as he opens the reward, it turns out to be an ability as a harvest optimizer. This ability can optimize slightly unripe or overripe fruits. He turns out to be disappointed by this ability, but later he realizes that it's super useful. Because of this ability, he is able to earn more points by turning unripe or overripe fruits into ripe fruits in optimal conditions. With this ability, his work got more efficient as he didn't have to wait for the tomatoes to be ripened. Deciding to take another break, another quest shows up at the notification window. The admin requests 200 harvested magic cherry tomatoes with no rewards. Unwillingly, Sejun completes the quest to compensate for the great ability given by the dungeon dragon. But this was just the beginning. The tower manager kept getting greedy, abusing his power as he increased the amount of cherry tomatoes from 200 to 250, and eventually asked for 300 cherry tomatoes. Our guy tackles the situation with patience and continues to complete the quest for the sake of rewards. However, when this new quest comes up, our fella finally loses his cool. The dungeon dragon asks him to offer 500 harvested magic cherry tomatoes with no rewards for completing the quest, making his blood boil. Our guy bursts out in anger when he reads out the new quest. And this time, he vehemently says no to completing this quest. Well, it clearly looks like the tower manager is a punk abusing his power as a dungeon admin and is trying to raise our main character as a slave. But Sejun has finally spoken for himself and put the obnoxious dragon in its place. As the admin is flustered by this bold move, our boy feels like he's being used as he does all the hard work and gets barely anything in return. It seems like the dungeon dragon is addicted to cherry tomatoes. It was the first time that Sejun had declined the admin's order, and he added this in his survival diary, making the admin's jaw drop. Our guy lashes out at the admin, as he had taken hundreds of cherry tomatoes earlier, saying that he also needs those cherry tomatoes for himself and the bunnies to feed themselves. Upon hearing his reason, the admin says to deal with their own problems and does not back off with a quest of 500 cherry tomatoes. Smirking, our boy clenches his fist and, listening to him, he replies that he had been working his butt off on the farm to harvest these cherry tomatoes. Adding fuel to the fire, the admin disrespects all of his hard work, saying that all he has to do is sow seeds. The admin further demands him to stop making a big deal out of it. Complete the quest. These rude remarks made by the dragon make our boy even more mad. He again turns down to accept the quest fearlessly. He ignores all the notifications by the admin and proceeds to continue with his work. The administrator starts manipulating Sejun, asking him if he is certain about declining the quest, adding that the admin might end up killing him. In the meantime, Sejun and the bunnies cut up green onions, cooking their fish. The bunnies brought up the cherry tomatoes for their meal. As the admin relentlessly keeps blackmailing our boy, Sejun fills with rage. He makes himself clear that he won't share the fruit that he had grown with hard work with anyone who doesn't acknowledge his work. He titles it as just throwing seeds, stating his work is easy. The over-the-top tower manager demands him to follow the order, as it holds the power as a dungeon administrator. Sticking with his decision, our boy proudly refuses again and tries to reason with the admin. He discloses the reason for declining this quest to be the admin who doesn't acknowledge his hard work on the farm that he was dragged into with hardly any rewards for the exploitation. Feeling dreadful, our guy finally speaks the truth, asserting that it might be a dungeon admin with power, but in reality, it's an evil corporate boss with no feelings. The dragon doesn't seem to handle the harsh truth well spoken by our guy. The admin gets stunned and lights up a spark of anger. Sejun then eats his harvested cherry tomatoes, teasing the dragon as it's peek at him through the screen. The admin hits the roof when she witnesses Sejun enjoying the cherry tomatoes all by himself, and threatens to kill him if he doesn't complete the quest. Meanwhile, our fellow who is unbothered by all the threats, he enjoys his fruit, as now he couldn't care more about that rude corporate boss. However, to satisfy the infuriated admin, Sejun offers her 5 cherry tomatoes, telling her that he will give the rest of the cherry tomatoes later, as he won't have enough to give the bunnies. The dungeon admin finally decides to forgive our boy and let it slide just once, accepting the cherry tomatoes as an apology. I mean, the dungeon dragon needs to be humbled, acting all high and mighty just because she's the tower manager. As the screen disappears, Sejun hides his sneaky grin as he realizes that the admin might be more accessible than he had thought, getting the hunch that the dragon was trying to apologize to him. The next scene takes us to the day when the blue moon is about to rise again. It is revealed to us that Sejun had spent 91 days in the dungeon, experiencing the 4th blue moon. He again prepares for the day. He hides in the corner of the cave, covering himself with a blanket and earmuffs. He bites on a cherry tomato, hoping to endure the shrieking of monsters. He assumes that added magic by the tomatoes would help him through the solar eclipse. He gets scared by the thought of what happened to him last time, wishing it to end soon. The blue moon becomes apparent. He witnesses the rays of the blue moon shine directly on his plants, making them sparkle like magic. Amazed by the sight, he peeks at his cherry tomatoes, which start to bloom by the blue moon energy and turn into fruit. As the light falls upon the sweet potato plants, they also begin to sparkle, and their leaves also turn bluish. Sejun rushes towards his plants, checking if the sweet potato plants have ripened. He digs up the soil and relishes the sight of fully ripe blue sweet potatoes. We get to know that the mighty sweet potatoes with blue moon energy are nutritious and tasty, grown in the dungeon. The blue moon energy enhances flavor and increases the strength by 0.05 points permanently when consumed. He spiritedly pulls out his sweet potatoes, earning rewards for harvesting them. He plucks out the blue magic cherry tomato. Grasping a blue sweet potato in one hand and a blue cherry tomato in another, Sejun lights up with joy, feeling as if he has conquered the world. But his happiness doesn't last long when he receives a new quest. Knowing how stubborn the admin is, the quest asks to offer a mighty sweet potato and a magic cherry tomato to the admin with no rewards and threatens to kill him if he declines. I mean, the admin is crossing all the limits, misusing her authority to satisfy her cravings. Receiving 2 quests at the same time, our guy chooses not to risk his life and completes the quest, offering a basket full of cherry tomatoes. This makes the admin happy, as he is now following the orders. However, the admin starts blabbing and complaining as the cherry tomatoes are not the required amount, warning him that he must offer them next time. Frustrated, he promises to give the rest of the cherry tomatoes some other time and requests for more time. After that, Sejun tosses the blue cherry tomato into his mouth and falls in love with the sweet, tangy flavor of the fruit, which again makes him reminisce about the summer night with fireworks. Our boy can't seem to wait and starts steaming the sweet potato. With no foils available, he wraps it up with super helpful green onion leaves. Impatient to eat the sweet potato, Sejun eagerly waits for the delicious meal to be cooked. The blue moon also comes to an end, and the bunny gang comes out of their house, staring at him with confusion. He delightfully welcomes the bunnies to join him and eat the sweet potato. It's loaded with blue moon energy. The bunnies are mesmerized by the sight of a perfectly cooked, steaming hot sweet potato. But the daddy bunny refuses to eat it. Acting like a true man, the bunny tells Sejun to eat the sweet potato all by himself, because they only have one. Crying out of happiness, our boy accepts his kindness, eating the sweet potato alone. He hides the fact that he had already eaten an entire sweet potato earlier. Munching on the freshly cooked sweet potato, Sejun bites into the steaming hot meal. He scalds his tongue, dropping the sweet potato. In a perfect chance, the bunnies grab a bite of the scrumptious sweet potato. The baby bunnies spit out the super hot sweet potato. Our poor boy feels bad about losing his meal. The long day comes to an end as Sejuan finishes a fiercely hot dinner battle. He makes his survival diary. A new day begins, so do new adventures. Our boy announces that they will start growing sweet potato stems while the baby bunnies chew on the stems. He strictly restricts the bunnies from eating the sweet potato leaves for the time being. The poor little bunnies start to panic, as the fast-growing sweet potato stems have become their favorite snack. To make the bunnies follow his demand, he makes an enticing offer to the kiddos. He tells them if they stop eating stems, they will have sweet potatoes for dinner and a special snack if they help him plant the stems. It seems like Sejuan is expanding the farm by planting the stems with rapid growth. He's luring the baby bunnies into work by giving them special snacks. The bunnies fall into the trap of an irresistible offer. Putting the baby bunnies to work, they begin to plant the stems. Meanwhile, the wifey bunny, with a cute apron, cuts off the green onions. Sejuan asks her to leave one green onion leaf to extract its seed out of the flower. The hubby bunny waters the stem. The bunnies continue to work, showing full efficiency as they dig up the soil and plant stems like pros. After all, they are kids of white farmer bunnies. While planting stems, one of the baby bunnies fails to control himself, drooling at the sight of the stem. He munches on it, taking a bite. The poor baby bunny gets whacked by the daddy bunny for breaking the rules. Sejuan acknowledges the daddy bunny as a great father for keeping his kids in check. On the other hand, our boy harvests the magic cherry tomatoes on the woven basket. He receives rewards, reaching level 8 with increasing occupational level. Eventually, he stops harvesting after getting the rewards. He begins to make snacks for himself and the bunnies, as promised. In contrast, the admin stealthily peeks at our guy. He is making cherry tomato sticks, wondering what he will make this time. As Sejuan turns back, he catches the admin sneaking up on him from behind. He was preparing the special snack. He calls upon the bunnies to join him for the meal. The bunnies excitedly scamper towards him. Our talented fellow presents the special barbecued cherry tomato bone skewers. The skewers are made of clean piranha bones, and the barbecue adds flavor, making the fruit taste sweeter and tender. The bunnies are overjoyed as they grab a bite of that scrumptious snack. Sejuan declares these special skewers as on-the-go snacks. Stuffing themselves with a flavorful snack, our boy proceeds to harvest the sweet potatoes. He is harvesting 15 sweet potatoes. He realizes that it's growing by 5 times. The items are mighty sweet potatoes, full of nutrients and flavor. When consumed, they dissolve 10 grams of body fat and increase strength by 0.1 point for 10 minutes. However, when consumed by a non-awakened person, they dissolve 10 grams of body fat and help digestive activities. Gazing at the other stems that haven't grown yet, he sows them himself and learns something important. As he gets a reward notification, our boy finds out that in order to get rewards, he needs to plant everything on his own to boost familiarity. He frantically orders the bunnies to stop planting the stems, saying that he will do it by himself. We are taken to the next scene where we see the dungeon dragon in her cozy home. She is roasting the cherry tomato skewers on the huge fire roaring in the hearth. As she chews the strangely delicious tomato skewers, she figures out that it's bitter on the outside and sweet on the inside. While she peeks at Sejuan through her magic crystal ball, the dungeon admin gets furious as she catches a glimpse of happy Sejuan, who is enjoying the sweet potato with fellow bunnies without her. It is revealed to us that the name of the dungeon administrator is Aileen Pertani, the Great Black Dragon. While the farmer gang chews on the sweet potato, our boy receives an extra quest, which is sent by Aileen out of spite. The quest asks for a roasted sweet potato from the admin right away, who threatens to kill him as she will not tolerate any more delays. With only one roasted sweet potato left, Sejuan acts smart and asks for a reward in return. Aileen reconsiders the quest and sends in a reviewed offer, asking for 1 sweet potato and rewarding 2 occupational abilities in return. Our boy seems satisfied and clears up the quest, for which he gets access to the seed store. After receiving the reward, Sejuan activates the seed store's ability to purchase products at the store once every 30 days. Our guy is surprised. He figures that now he can buy stuff in the dungeon from the seed store. He complains about why the admin didn't give such a great ability sooner. He activates the seed store ability. Unfortunately, there's no transaction history with the seed store. With no dungeon money, he panics about how he can make transactions to solve his problem. Aileen comes to his rescue and gets generous. She gives him a newbie offer. His seed store will provide 1 dungeon coin that has been deposited into his seed bank account. Sejun is pleased by the great reward of getting to witness the dungeon currency for the first time. He recalls that a dungeon coin used to cost 1 million in the real world. With his newbie level, he can only buy one type of seed, making it difficult for him to choose from the seed store. Glancing at all the seeds, which seem out of range, he is left with the only choice, which is carrots. Listening to this, the bunnies stare at him with big, sparkly eyes, as if they're craving for carrots. The bunnies get all exhilarated, and Sejun starts chanting along with them. Suddenly, the daddy bunny strikes a powerful kick on Sejun's face. Getting startled by the bunny's kick, he quickly purchases 1,000 carrot seeds, earning 1 seed store point. The carrot seeds emerge in a fancy red pouch, and the bunnies get happy with the carrot seeds. After that, they plant the carrot seeds. Getting to buy carrot seeds for the first time from a dungeon coin, he adds this in his survival diary. Later, we witness a bee spying on them from under the leaves. The farmer bunnies fervently wait for the carrots to grow out soon, happily sitting by the farm while the baby bunnies run around on the field. Watching the bunnies being eager already, and the bunny couple being all affectionate, glancing at the carrot field, Sejun thinks to himself that it's been a few days since they planted carrot seeds, and they haven't sprouted yet. Before taking a quick nap, he reminds himself of the work list that entails manually pollinating the flowers and cutting the green onions in the afternoon, and dozes off along with a little bunny who sleeps over him. Flaking out, a bug flies around him, buzzing in his ear, making him irritated. He jerks his hand to avoid the buzzing, but our boy wakes up annoyed by the sound, wondering where this damn bug came from. In a flash, an adorable little bee comes up front, staring at Sejun with pretty purple eyes. Assuming the super adorable bee to be an insect monster, while our boy is puzzled about the sudden bee arrival, he moves up, making the baby bunny trip on the ground as he diverts all his attention towards the bee, glancing at the bee with eyes full of love. A notification pops up, warning that it's a poisonous honeybee. Reading this notification frightens Sejun. The poisonous honeybee gets closer. To save himself, he asks the bunnies if the bee is really deadly. But, darting away, the bunnies hastily retreat, escaping the scene. Poor Sejun is left stuck with the deadly bee. Our boy is terrified and all alone, abandoned by the deceiving bunnies. The dungeon administrator reveals that this poisonous honeybee is carnivorous. They hunt animals with their venomous stingers and eat the flesh. The admin further warns them to stay away from the deadly bee stinger. Scared stiff, our guy feels threatened, knowing the honeybee eats flesh. He instantly moves away from that poisonous insect monster. I mean, it's a deadly honeybee with a venomous stinger, which can frighten anybody to death. Abruptly, the poisonous honeybee becomes mad, her eyes turning red. Our boy cries for help, pleading with the bee not to kill him, and trips on the ground. He stumbles onto the flower field. With nowhere to escape, he grasps a flower and, scared, extends his hand towards the bee. The bee calms down, inspects the flower, and starts sniffing it. Finally, the honeybee sucks the flower's nectar, and now the deadly monster seems delighted. Our boy speculates if the bee is really carnivorous because it consumed the nectar. In a minute, he figures out that the honeybee can help with pollination. This distracts him from the terror of the poisonous honeybee, who now seems harmless. Our boy summons the bee and directs it towards the fields of flowers to pollinate them. This way, the bee carries out pollination, filling its stomach, while some of Sejun's workload is lifted from his shoulder. A tantalizing rush starts to flow as the honeybee heads towards the flowers. Our guy is more than satisfied now, as he doesn't have to pollinate the tomato flowers manually, which hurts his back. In the meantime, the bunny gang comes back, peeking at Sejun as they hide behind a rock. Greeting the bunnies, he taunts them for leaving him alone, calling them selfish. Still angry with the bunny gang, the honeybee returns after pollinating the flowers. Thinking that the bee has now filled its stomach, the monster bee comes closer to Sejun. It makes its bed on his shirt and sleeps on him. Finding it cute, he hopes not to get stung by the poison, not making any movements while the bee rests on him. The bunnies surround him, glancing at her with fascination. He welcomes the honeybee as a new family member in his survival diary. The next day, we see the farm has blossomed with ripened red cherry tomatoes. It seems like Sejun has spent 120 days in the dungeon, marking the wall without forgetting a day. A peaceful day shines over the farm. The bunny takes care of the plants, watering the seeds, while our boy harvests the freshly ripened cherry tomatoes. Annoyed by the baby bunnies disturbing his work momentum, Uncle Sejun sends them off to play somewhere else. As he catches a glimpse of the baby bunnies playing together, the proud uncle smiles at them, as it reminds him of his good time as a kid. Later, the honeybee joins them, settling on Sijuin's shoulder. The boy then narrates that the poisonous honeybee has been traveling back and forth to the dungeon for a few weeks. She arrives in the morning to do all the hardworking, honey-sucking work and returns to the forest by evening, guessing that it goes back to her beehive. We also get to know that the honeybee started producing its own honey a few days ago, which is intriguing. Later, lunchtime begins, and our boy gathers the bunnies to join him for the meal. The bunnies eat their cooked fish, while Sijuin grabs his roasted green onion. As the bee drips honey on it, these are known as honey green onions. Freshly roasted green onions topped off with a layer of honey from the honeybee, which enhances the sweet and savory flavors. While he gets dazzled by the hypnotizing taste, the bunnies are left in awe by the taste of the honey green onions. Our boy feels relieved, as the bee now seems harmless. With honeybees being super useful for pollinating and providing honey, they have expanded the farm rapidly. Sijuin can't seem to get over the delicious honey green onions, thinking that he can immerse himself in honey like a bear in a few months. The administrator sneakily peeks at him and cheers him on. In the meantime, Sijuin marks the wall and notices that the blue moon is approaching. He feels nervous, thinking about the previous incidents that occurred during the solar eclipse, wishing that it passes safely. As the blue moon day rises, Sijuin takes some red cherry tomatoes out of the storage into a woven basket. While thinking that the honeybee hasn't shown up yet, he assumes that she might be getting ready for the blue moon and gives the bunnies a heads up to return to their home. However, as our guy picks up the tomato basket, he notices something strange. Noticing the farmer bunnies and the baby bunnies frantically clamped together in a tight hug, acting strange, staring at them with confusion. The bunny couple ran towards their home in the blink of an eye, leaving the baby bunnies behind as the blue moon is about to begin. Sijuin is muddled by the sudden situation, watching the baby bunnies be left outside by their parents. Promptly, the blue moon rises as the light falls on him. Our boy turns back to look at the baby bunnies and observes something horrible. He watches the baby bunnies. They are turning into monsters as the blue moonlight falls upon them, making them wild. He witnesses the horrible situation that has taken place. Suddenly, a bright light flashes onto his face. It seems like something is happening to the bunnies. Assuming that it's over, it turns out that the babies have grown up. They have transformed into white farmer bunnies with the help of the blue moon energy. Our guy sums it up that now the bunnies have grown up. Their coats have changed, similar to their parents. This fifth blue moon was the bunnies' adulting ritual. It appears that there are 4 white grown-up bunnies and 1 black-coated grown-up bunny. Perplexed by the sudden incident, faint-hearted Uncle Sijuin starts sobbing, reckoning that something happened to them, while the grown-up farmer bunnies appease him. Our boy moves in for a big cuddle, smooching off the bunnies who can hardly escape. He takes sweet revenge for scaring him, and the grown-ups start running away from his cuddles filled with love. Eventually, the blue moon comes to an end, and the farmer bunnies come out of their home. Watching Uncle Sijuin and the grown-up bunnies sitting back by the fire, our boy contemplates the wholesome moment as the grown-up bunnies reunite with their parents, clinging together in a hug. He thinks of throwing a party for the newly young farmer bunnies. However, one of the young white farmer bunnies moves his hand, and an item appears in his hand. It seems like all of the 4 white farmer bunnies summon their items, including a white sickle farmer, a white wagon farmer, a white sprinkling can farmer, and a white shovel farmer. Getting their items, the parents cheer them on as now all of them have transformed into farmers like them, summoning their items. Sijuin concedes that when the bunnies grow up to be white farmer bunnies, they each get to own an item, thinking that he will never be able to borrow an item. While a white farmer bunny tosses the black bunny out of the wagon, the guy is still lost in thought. As soon as he asks the black bunny why he didn't get any items, a big wooden hammer appears in his hand. Our boy realizes that he's not a farmer, but a black warrior bunny as his name appears later. All the white farmer bunnies begin working on the farm, with 2 of them trimming off the green onions. 2 of them are watering the field. 1 of them is carrying the freshly harvested tomatoes into the wagon. 1 of them is digging up soil with a shovel. The wagon farmer bunnies bring the cherry tomatoes in the wheelbarrow to Sijuin, where he places the tomatoes in the storage made out of rocks and covered with green onion leaves. Tears of joy start streaming from Uncle Sijuin's eyes. He beholds the sight of his grown-up bunnies helping their parents, getting proud of them. Meanwhile, our boy swings his attention to the black warrior bunny. He finds him chilling and eating cherry tomatoes. He asks if he ever works at all. He wonders what a warrior bunny does. He assumes their job is to fight for the living. But in the dungeon, there are no monsters that could put their farm in danger. He asserts that the big wooden hammer isn't useful in farming. The black warrior bunny makes his way to the pond and points at it. Our guy concludes that the warrior bunny can hunt the fish in the pond. That would be helpful for them, putting one more thing off his plate. To test the bunny's power, Sejuan stands near the pond, holding the fire flame torch to lure in the fishes. The warrior bunny stands guard with his hammer. As a fish splashes out of the pond, the warrior bunny strikes a blow with his hammer with full strength. It turns the poor fish into grits like a fish juice. Our guy is left stunned by the powerful blow made by the warrior bunny. Disappointed, they all eat soggy grit fish for dinner. The white farmer blues gives him an annoyed glare, making him feel guilty. But Uncle Sejuan tries to lighten up the mood, giving hope to the black bunny that practice will make him good at hunting fish. After some time, the bunnies familiarize themselves with their appointed roles as Sejuan helps them through it all. 125th day in the dungeon comes along, and the seed store reopens after 30 days. Delighted, our boy wonders what seeds he should buy this time. But this excitement is short-lived when he witnesses that the prices of the seeds have increased more than before. The 3 seed choices appear in front of him, and with only 0.09 dungeon coins, he could only afford the waxy corn seeds. He is concerned about future purchasing, as it seems like a problem, because he won't be able to buy anything if the prices keep getting higher, and also there's no way for him to earn dungeon coins. It is revealed to us that the hunters, or people who are taken into the dungeon, have 3 ways to earn dungeon coins. The first one is the way to earn rewards by clearing up dungeon floors, which gets them large amounts of rewards, but only once per floor clearing. Floor clearing rewards do not take up a larger proportion of hunter revenue, which takes us to the second way. That is to earn rewards by killing monsters and selling their bodies to peddlers or at the first floor store of the dungeon. The second way takes up the largest part of hunters' revenue because it enables repetitive sales. The last way, which is the third way, is to earn rewards by completing quests, and the rewards vary according to the quests. Unluckily, Sejuan cannot earn dungeon coins in any of the usual ways. He is not allowed to clear the dungeon floors or leave. The only option left is to complete the exploitative quests given by the dungeon dragon. He frantically calls upon the admin and asks for dungeon coins in return for completing quests. Notifications appear. It turns out the admin is unaware of the dungeon currency, but promises Sejuan to give him the coins when she grows up. He gives it a thought and speculates that the dragon doesn't know about the dungeon coins. Asking about her age and how many years she needs to grow up, Eileen, the black dragon, answers that it's a secret. But the dragon estimates the age, which is around 300 years, making our poor protagonist freak out. He strongly objects because, to earn his coins, he will have to pass the dungeon coins to generations of his great-great-grandchildren, which will probably take a century to reap the benefit. He tries to reason with the admin, explaining that he's not in a position to reproduce while trapped in a cave, challenging his last nerve. The screen disappears, making his blood boil even more. Our boy calms down, thinking that anger won't help either way. He decides to buy a batch of corn seeds, as they are delicious when roasted or grilled, and they can make tortillas out of corn flour, which seems kind of far-fetched. Counting all the benefits, he taps onto the corn seeds and purchases 200 waxy corn seeds, earning points for purchasing. A red pouch appears, and the shiny corn seeds burst out of it, making Sejuan and the bunnies excited to plant the corn seeds. But first, they decide to have dinner as their stomachs rumble and hunger pangs hit them. They cook the fishes and stuff themselves to their fullest. As more fishes are being steamed, they dry the rest and save them for later. Later, the bee joins him, rubbing against his cheeks. He assumes the honeybee is hanging out in the cave more than usual and not going to her home as often, but he doesn't mind the presence of the adorable honeybee. Suddenly, the bee senses something strange above the cave. The alert poisonous honeybee and the black warrior bunny get all fired up to fight and leap upwards into the cave, guessing that it's a dungeon monster. But it turns out to be little paws stretching out from above the cave, pleading to stop attacking him as he is not here to steal their food. It turns out to be a cat who has found its way into the cave, and the bunnies start to shake in fear. Sejuan asks the cat what brings him here. The cat, wearing a cute green cape with its paws aimed toward the ground, jumps into the cave, entering like a classic superhero. The cat introduces himself as Theo, who is a peddler, and greets his customer, Sejuan Park. Meeting the peddler cat, Sejun adds this moment into his survival diary. He remembers that he has heard about running into peddlers while climbing the towers, but he's never heard about a peddler cat before. Analyzing Theo's soft, chubby cheeks, sparkly, wide eyes, and squishy paws that nobody can avoid playing with, our guy gets smitten by the cute cat. It turns out that Sejun is a cat person, trying to act cool in front of the cat and hiding his affection. He asks Theo about what he wants. To this, Theo answers that he has gotten to know that Sejun has become a new member of the seed store. The cat bows down and proposes a deal with him. The cat takes some stuff out of his bag, but shortly after that, his stomach starts growling. Theo apologizes for his unprofessional act in front of his customer, asserting that he hasn't eaten anything in days. Listening to this, a sneaky grin shrouds Sejun's face, and he offers the cat some grilled fish. Glancing at the freshly grilled fish, Theo's eyes get bigger than ever. It looks like he has never seen a fish before and can't wait to grab a bite of the scrumptious meal. Drooling over the grilled fish, Theo refuses to eat the fish, saying that he can't take his customer's food. But it looks like Sejun has something in mind, as he doesn't back off and urges the cat to take the fish, tempting him by carrying the grilled fish close to his face. He lures the food near Theo, telling him to smell the wonderfully succulent fish cooked to perfection, imploring him how he can resist the strong, fishy aroma of being a cat. Theo stares at the fish with desperate eyes, testing his patience. He fails to hold back and grabs the grilled fish, drooling at the mouth. The irresistible act of Sejun makes the cat eat the fish, and he keeps grilling it for him, being compassionate about Theo's appetite. Theo eats 5 grilled fish cooked by our guy. The cat lays on the ground, stuffing his stomach to the fullest. The cat is more than grateful for the delicious meal and appreciates his hospitality. Unsure of how else to repay him, exchanging the kind words, Sejun proposes a deal to Theo, asking for 0.5 dungeon coins. The cat gets confused, but our guy clears the air as he asks him to pay for what he has eaten, thinking that the meal was for free. The sly cave person tells Theo that there's no such thing as a free lunch and reminds the cute cat that he's here for a deal. Sejun traps the poor cat in his plan and asks Theo if he was just going to leave after eating his customer's food, while the warrior bunny stands behind him holding a hammer. Poor cat pays him the amount he asked for, and our guy gets excited as he has just earned dungeon coins. It looks like Theo, the peddler cat, has been scammed by our main character. Theo regrets his decision. He ponders that he came to make money from his customer, but ended up giving his money away. It looks like his business took a fall before it even started. Determined, he refuses to be a pushover again and decides to sell something to Sejun. Taking his items out of the bag, Theo presents the brand new items he had bought from another dungeon floor, which include a container, a mini fan, and a pocket hand warmer, selling for 5 dungeon coins each. Sejun thinks and speculates that these items are similar to those of the outside world. The cat goes on and explains their magic features, saying that the container is a magic preservation that also maintains the temperature of hot or cold items. Asserting that these items are trash, Sejun says, "Humph." Hearing the disrespectful remarks about his items, Theo gets furious as his valuable items are titled as trash when they should be appreciated. On this, Sejun discloses that he had come from the outside world, confessing that none of these are magic items, but are ordinary real-world gadgets, explaining the real science behind the items and how they actually work. The cat fights back, denying the stark reality about his items exposed by Sejun. He also reveals that a goblin named Scrum told him that these are magic items. While the cat continues to tell his sob story, the mini fan goes out of battery. As Theo tries to make the fan move, he fails miserably. Sejun speaks out. That person named Scrum tricked him into buying these useless items by telling mendacious features about them. Listening to this, Theo is on the verge of a breakdown as he remembers how friendly the goblin was and he easily got fooled by him. Distraught, the cat is left in disbelief after getting deceived by the goblin. Punching on the ground with his little paws, he breaks down in tears, calling himself a useless cat who easily gets persuaded and conned. Thinking that Theo sounds like a real cat, Sejun asks the cat to share his tragic story. Theo then unfolds his tale of woe, revealing that he's from the 75th floor, which is one of the neutral zones in the dungeon. He falls in love with Meryl, who is the most beautiful catwoman in his village, Grainier. Mustering up the courage, he finally decides to express his love for her. Proposing to Meryl with a bouquet full of fish, he asks her to be his girlfriend. Meryl, a pretty gray cat, appears in a beautiful blue dress. As she breathes the unpleasant smell of the fishes, she flings the bouquet with her sharp claws, and the small fishes scatter all over the ground, ruining Theo's gift. She jerks her hand, saying, "These fishes smell like cheap minnows." Theo gets offended by this rude act and lets out that it took hours to find these minnow fishes. Meanwhile, Meryl stands there with no guilt on her face. Just then, another black cat arrives at the scene. The black cat makes a fancy entry, objecting that Meryl does not deserve these cheap fishes. To Theo's surprise, it turns out to be Oren, the black cat, the son of the richest family in the village. He is holding a big salmon. Oren holds his expensive gift, disapproving of Theo's gift. He asserts, "What kind of cat gives cheap fish to a lady like Meryl? A real man, like me, offers a premium salmon." Meryl, the greedy cat, gets flattered by the expense of the salmon and totally seems to fall in love with it. Theo yells that Meryl doesn't like fatty fish, but no one listens to him. Getting rejected in the most humiliating way, Theo feels crestfallen. Oren and Meryl get on their way to enjoy the salmon steak at his house. Meryl happily wags her tail, walking with the richest cat and rejecting kind-hearted Theo in the most mortifying way. I mean, Theo has dodged a bullet with a money grubber like Meryl because he deserves so much better. But this doesn't end here. Theo follows them and grabs Meryl's hand, refusing to let her go. Theo starts acting dramatically as he reminds Meryl of the memories they've shared together and asks her if these memories meant nothing to her. The cat pulls off a dramatic scene, coming straight out of the melodrama. However, snapping back to reality, Meryl strongly jerks his hands and reveals that she just smiled at him a few times because he kept following her everywhere. She further humiliates Theo by telling him that she hates a poor cat like him, who reeks of cheap minnows. Hearing these excruciating words, poor Theo bursts into tears. I mean, the cat is super delusional, making romantic scenarios just because a beautiful woman smiles at him. The next scene takes us to the present day, where Theo wraps up his hardship tale, revealing that after losing Meryl to Oren, the richest cat in town, he left his village to get his revenge by becoming rich. And to achieve all of this, he decides to become a peddler. It turns out that Theo becomes a peddler to fulfill his revenge, after facing a gruesome rejection by the woman he loved the most, who had left him for some rich guy. After listening to his painful story, Sejuan and the bunnies are left speechless. The poor cat had invested his lifetime savings of 50 dungeon coins to acquire the credentials needed to become a merchant and get conned by the evil-looking goblin, who cajoles him into purchasing those useless items, which he buys for the remaining 5 dungeon coins. Theo explains his scam story, and it all started with that evil goblin. It all begins in a bar where a black female bunny, dressed appealingly, is serving drinks. The goblin sets a trap by tricking him into sharing a secret. He unravels that the cat can resell the items the goblin has at a higher price on the upper floors of the dungeon, as people on the top floor collect these things for fun. Hysterical, Theo asks him why he is selling these items for such a low price. The goblin lets out that he likes Theo, and he's helping him out as a junior merchant. As Theo thinks it over, the goblin manipulates him, saying that he will sell these items to the other merchants otherwise. Therefore, Theo falls into his trap and gets a bonus from Scrum, the goblin, which is the map that shows the new seed store member. After that, the goblin leaves the bar just like that. Theo gets strapped for cash, and because of that, he has to skip meals to come all the way here in hopes of selling these items, only to hear these items are trash, losing customer. The poor cat is devastated by the things that happen to him. Upon hearing this, Sejuan thinks to himself that Theo is the most gullible cat he's ever met, who has gotten scammed by everyone. Promptly, an idea sparks in his mind. It looks like our boy has gotten smart after spending a rough life in the dungeon. Our guy finally figures out the way to earn dungeon coins and encourages Theo by offering him a grilled fish. Panicked, Theo asks if he would make him pay for the meal, but this time Sejuan makes sure that they're for free, and so are the earlier ones. The cat looks at him with eyes filled with love, feeling relieved. However, he asks for a favor in return, that is to work with him, and Theo listens to him carefully. It looks like Sejuan has found himself a servant as well as a partner, saving this moment in his survival diary. Confused, Theo asks him if he wants to work with a useless rookie peddler like him. But Sejuan, who cannot let this deal slip out of his hands, persuades Theo to sign the deal and help him sell his items, flattering him by calling Theo business savvy. But the cat is not uplifted by his words and thinks of himself as a useless cat. But Sejuan comforts him, making him believe that committing mistakes is okay. And they also lead him to meet his business partner, encouraging the cat by calling him a business genius. Our guy almost convinces Theo to be his partner, as the peddler's thought lingers in uncertainty. Sejun calls the bunnies as they set up deck chairs and an umbrella canopy made out of green onion leaves, making it look like a beach without water. While the white farmer bunnies adorn themselves with flowers, Sejun slurps the drink served by the bunnies, relaxing on the deck chair, while the bunnies act as his servants, blowing air by the green onion leaves. And Theo sits there in utter confusion. After that, he talks to Theo. "We cannot trick people into buying these items I bought from Scarum." He assumed Theo had no money to find a new client. Theo nods, now penniless. Our main character proposes a deal that would benefit them both. He explains his simple business idea, thinking like a true entrepreneur, or you could say a con man. He reveals that Theo has to sell the items to people, and he will share a part of the profit made from the sale as a commission. Before Theo can inquire about the commission, he interrupts him. "You must sell the product at or above the prices that Sejun sets for the items. You can also sell the items at higher prices if you're capable of doing so." Theo would get 3 to 5% of the sale price, which seems quite low. He gets disheartened while our guy cajoles him into agreeing. The grown-up bunnies move towards Theo, bringing him grilled fish. The cat is disappointed after learning his commission amount, thinking it's so little. He slurps his drink in anger. He thinks that he is not stupid and will not be fooled again. But the deal doesn't end there. Sejun orders the bunnies to bring up the deliciously grilled fish and energetically adds, "You will get 10 grilled fish or coins of equivalent value every week." This makes Theo's jaw drop as he hears such an appealing offer that no cat can resist. He catches a glimpse of the tempting grilled fish carried by the bunnies. Finalizing his generous offer, Theo drools over the grilled fish, completely falling into Sejun's bait. "What's your answer?" Sejun asks. Theo is reminded of the horrible past incidents, the greedy Meryl, evil Orin, and the scammer goblin Scarum who had made him penniless. He shakes off all the bad thoughts, determined not to become a pushover again. But glancing at the tantalizing offer in front of him, a generous deal with his favorite food, Theo gives it some thought and demands to agree to Sejun's deal on one condition: 20 grilled fish. It looks like cunning Sejun has finally succeeded in his plan. He puts on a devilish smile. To make Theo not jump out of the deal again, our boy adds 5 more fish, making it 25 in total as his compensation. The cat is filled with admiration as he peers at the irresistible grilled fish. To add a cherry on top, Sejun offers Theo as much grilled fish as he wants while he stays in the cave, making him burst with happiness. Theo, with an adorable cat face, stands in awe, his eyes filled with love, looking at the cooked fish. Our guy asks for a piece of paper. Getting his hands on a paper and a feather pen, Sejun decides to make a contract. While both parties sign the contract, Theo instantly regrets his decision. He presumes that he signed the contract on a whim. As all attention is captivated by the sight of grilled fishes, the paper contract glides in the air, transforming into an official, permanent agreement by the dungeon admin, with proper purpose and terms written by Sejun demonstrated on the notification window. Our ingenious guy reveals that contracts are important in the dungeon. They can't be revoked, and that's why it is hard to delete or edit them. He then celebrates his first ever contract with Theo, while the cat is still in disbelief. Reconsidering the decision, reading the contract, Theo raises a question about Clause 4, asking what the term meowish means. He takes a guess that our boy could be referring to his grainier dialect, while the self-conscious Theo wags his tail. Our boy informs him that he will find out when the time comes. Hoping for a good partnership and uncertain of how long this contract will last, the cat reminds Sejun of the first clause, stating that the contract will be terminated if Theo fails to make any sales or sell his items. Patting the fluffy cat, our boy puts his trust in Theo and praises him by telling him that he is counting on the savvy cat, on which Theo gets flattered, as he likes his title as a smart CEO and starts after that. The cat asks for the items he's looking to sell, to which Sejun smirks and reveals that the items he is going to sell are cherry tomatoes. Theo gets baffled after hearing he's going to sell a fruit as an item. Our boy takes him to the farm, showing him the magic cherry tomatoes. As the cat sniffs the fruit, Sejun reveals that it's an item called the magic cherry tomato. He explains that it increases magic by 0.01 point for 10 minutes. Seeking the sale price of the tomatoes, Theo takes a guess and assumes that if he sells them to new awakens that have been admitted to the dungeon, Maybe he can sell them for 0.01 dungeon coins. However, our guy, who is not coming slow, asks Theo to sell them at a price of 0.05 dungeon coins. Shocked, Theo frantically makes it clear no one would buy these items from him at such a price. To top it all off, Theo reckons on selling the items and making less than 5 dungeon coins to terminate his contract with Sijuan, and takes his 25 grilled fish, presuming that it will be a good idea. Lost in his sneaky thought, Theo agrees to sell the items. He asks Sijuan how many items he should take. The bunnies carry 1,000 magic cherry tomatoes for sale, and his 25 grilled fish as a part of his weekly compensation. Wondering how Theo will carry tons of items, the peddler cat pulls out his magic rucksack. It comes with preservation, expansion, and lightweight magic, allowing it to store tons of stuff in their original condition for a long period of time. Impressed by the magic item, Theo tosses the rucksack on the items. In the blink of an eye, the magic cloth takes all the cherry tomatoes and grilled fish, turning it into a backpack. Conveniently, Theo puts on his backpack filled with items and food for the way and is ready to leave. Sijuan and the bunnies wish him luck and wave him goodbye as Theo jumps out of the cave. The scene then flashes, taking us a few days later to the 39th floor of the dungeon, where hunters are fighting with a big spider dungeon monster. One of the awakened seems to struggle. The others throw a fireball at the spider, but it seems like a tough fight as the spider is powerful. In a flash, a powerful hunter with a magical blue sword decapitates the spider, making it look like no big deal. The impressive hunter turns out to be Dong-sik, the leader of the Phoenix Guild, who seems to take the lead again with his unmatched sword-fighting skills. Snapping out of the flattery, Dong-sik orders the other members to help their colleagues wrap it up, pointing out Jessica, who is one of the team members, because she free rides most of the time. Abruptly, the leader hears a noise coming from behind his back. He gets prepared to attack. It appears to be Theo, the peddler cat, greeting humans. Theo cuts to the chase and asks the hunters to check out his items. The members figure out that it's a peddler cat, and a girl goes crazy over the adorable-looking merchant cat. Theo's mind drifts to Sijuan, who had told him to use his grainier dialect in front of the humans to help him draw attention. It turns out to be a good idea, as the peddler manages to gather all the people around him. He brings out the magic cherry tomatoes as the members of the guild are looking closely at the item. Dong-sik asks the peddler cat why he is here to sell fruit, saying it would have been better if he had bought bread or meat. Theo then calls upon the foolish humans. He confesses that these are not any average tomatoes. He captivates attention by revealing the main thing about these magic cherry tomatoes, which is their features. The people realize that they are magic items, as their features and benefits are shown on the status window. Looking at the tomatoes' magic energy, the guild members object to the tiny magic amount and freak out when they find out that the peddler is selling them for 0.05 dungeon coins, which seems quite expensive. Hearing the price of the magic cherry tomatoes, the hunters speak out. They would rather spend their money on equipment than on these ordinary tomatoes. As the people start losing interest in Theo's magic item, one of the girl members reads out the full description of the item. She is surprised when she finds out that these magic tomatoes can dissolve 10 grams of body fat. This piques the interest of fitness enthusiasts. Knowing that these tomatoes can help lose weight just by consuming them, they turn their attention towards the peddler. However, the hunters get even crazier when they learn that applying up to 10 of these cherry tomatoes affects them all at once. The demand for Theo's item drastically increases. A feud begins between the guild members as they compete for the red cherry tomatoes. One of the hunters asks for hundreds of tomatoes at once, and the demands keep rising as more people join in to buy this magic item. Eventually, Theo sells out all of the magic items he had brought with him, looking astonished. The scene then takes us to the cave where we see Sijuan is harvesting the cherry tomatoes. He wonders if things are going well with Theo, assuming that he should have met the hunters by now. As our boy picks out a freshly grown cherry tomato, he says that people might think these cherry tomatoes can only boost magic, but they are a one-of-a-kind weight loss product that instantly reduces 10 grams of body fat and gives energy with no side effects at all. He eats his delicious cherry tomatoes and guesses that they will be a hit among the people, having full faith in human obsession with weight loss and body fat. Later, we learn that Theo has sold out all the items and has earned 50 dungeon coins on his first mission. At the cave, Sijuan sees that the carrot seeds have finally sprouted up to 70%. It is revealed to us that 700 out of 1,000 carrot seeds had sprouted, growing into small plants. 732 out of 1,200 magic cherry tomatoes had sprouted, and the germination rate of the corn seeds and sweet potato also fluttered around 60 to 70%. It looks like Sujuin's farm is thriving with newly sprouted plants. Wishing that the seeds could germinate more, he speculates that the reason for the slow germination of the seeds could either be low farming level or less fertile cave soil. He gets determined to boost the productivity of the flowers. Our boy now feels the need to harvest as much as possible because they have ultimately found a way to earn dungeon coins through Theo. Suddenly, they hear a noise coming from the pond. It turns out that the Black Warrior Bunny has honed his skills. He flaunts his breathtaking hunting skills by striking his hammer and smashing multiple fishes at once. It looks like our Warrior Bunny has become the best fisherman in the cave. Uncle Sijuin is impressed by his amazing hunting skills, calling him a veteran hunter. After a while, the Black Bunny starts to glow as he levels up. Sijuin congratulates him by patting him and asserts that he had seen the white farmer bunnies during farming before, but not him. Reckoning that now the Black Bunny has become a real grown hunter, the flattered Warrior Bunny shows off his muscles, and the white farmer bunnies clap for him, cheering him on. Soon after, Sijuin pulls out something from his bag. It seems to be one of the items that Theo had brought with him, and he takes a coffee break. As he opens up the flask, he seems to be on cloud 9 after seeing coffee packets inside the container. He thinks that nobody even bothered to open the container, neither did Theo, nor the guy who sold him those items. Sijuin readily holds the container and reckons if Theo had sold him this coffee container, he would have spent all of his money on the coffee sticks. Nonetheless, he thanks Theo for leaving the container behind and makes instant coffee with no other choice in the dungeon. He thinks that he can't even make hot coffee without a kettle, let alone a glass of iced Americano, but he feels grateful for the instant coffee that seemed like a luxury to him at that moment. While preparing the coffee, the honeybee drips honey into the coffee bottle to add a touch of sweetness, and Sijuin appreciates her for that. The coffee drink is called honey Murano, made with ground coffee melted in cold cave water and a thick drop of honey from the poisonous honeybee to strike the perfect balance between bitter and sweet. As he takes a sip of that honey Murano, he rejoices at the perfect coffee taste that is enough to cope with the fatigue and food coma. While our boy is lost in the amazing flavor of that cold coffee, he asks the bunnies to taste it. The Black Bunny comes forward to take a sip of the coffee. As soon as he gulps it, he spits it out right away as the coffee tastes gross to him. In the meantime, the honeybee drives along with her beehive, and Sijuin notices her. It looks like the poisonous honeybee has moved her beehive into the cave, and our boy is overjoyed by this news. He lets out that he used to be sad when the bee returned home in the evening. He welcomes the beehive to the family, deciding to celebrate this moment, but his plans are ruined as a new quest comes up. The quest is to offer 10 harvested cherry tomatoes to the admin, with the consequence of declining to hurt the admin's feelings. Smirking, our boy had been putting off quests because of the death threats and reckoned that the dungeon dragon must have realized something while watching his deal with Theo. He thinks it over and realizes the tower manager has stopped demanding big offers, not threatening to kill him anymore, and feels sympathetic for the admin, as now he seems to control her. Sijuin finishes the quest. The tower manager, not the admin, appreciates his kindness and gives him 10 cherry tomatoes. The tower manager has become kind after Sijuin found a way to earn dungeon coins. Seeing the manager being kind, Sijuin finds it cute and says that he likes it. As soon as he says the words, he instantly regrets it, assuming that he sounds like a sucker. He bumps his hand against the wall in embarrassment. Next, we go to the Peddler Guild. Scarum, the goblin, is in the bar, sitting with his fellow goblins and drinking beer. Strangely, Scarum is searching for Theo, the peddler cat. He asks his friend about him. The goblins figure out that Scarum is talking about Theo, who bought trash items. They praise him for how clever he is, as he managed to sell his useless items to a stupid peddler. They ask Scarum why he is looking for Theo, to which he answers that the peddler cat ran out of money after buying those useless items from him and should have returned to the peddler's guild by now, after failing to make any sales. The goblins presume that evil Scarum is worried about Theo and question him about the cat. The ugly-looking goblin, who is not compassionate at all, schemes to scam the cat again by offering him more opportunities and loans over a glass of milk. With a devilish grin, Scarum plots the whole thing and how that peddler cat will find it hard to pay off his high-interest debts and will struggle to repay the booming interests. He plans on making Theo his slave for the rest of his life. Listening to the evil plot Scarum had planned, the other goblins think he is a genius. To To execute his plan, Scarum orders them to find Theo, because it's hard to find a fool and a sucker like him. Finishing up the drinks, Scarum opens up his peddler sales ranking and sees himself ranking in the top thousands, making it to 999th position. A gush of pride flows through him as he makes it to the list, while his friends do not even rank. It seems like Scarum managed to get on the list by scamming a bunch of innocent and gullible peddlers to make money. He then proceeds to find his victim, and to his surprise, he sees Theo's name ranking in the 982nd position with sales of 50 dungeon coins. Boiling with anger and confusion, he wonders how it is even possible and is confused by the great achievement made by Theo. His goblin friends start whispering. They found out that it's the cat, the one Scarum was planning to destroy, that has ranked higher than him. Furious, Scarum strikes the table out of anger. He is utterly jealous of the cat since he managed to make more sales than him. Meanwhile, Sejuan and the bunnies are working on the farm. Theo comes back after his successful mission. Our boy yells at Theo, asking where he had been. The cat apologizes, saying that he will come back as soon as he sells out next time, without wandering on other floors. Our guy hysterically questions Theo if he is on vacation, to which he confesses that it's only been 4 days since he sold the magic items. Sejuan inspects him. It takes about 10 days to reach the 30th level and asks him why he took 4 days off after making the sales. However, in the back of his mind, Sejuan is surprised that it took Theo 14 days, realizing that it would have taken a lot of days, adding that he must have sold out as soon as he reached downstairs. Sejuan taps on the cat's shoulder and asks Theo to explain everything in detail, with a weird grin on his face. As Theo explains his journey and how he sold out the magic cherry tomatoes, our boy gets amused that it only took a few words to have the hunters buy everything. Theo hands the bag full of dungeon coins to his partner. Glancing at the dungeon coins, Sejuan thanks his in turn, Theo, and gives his commission, which is 2 dungeon coins. Presuming that he was the savvy CEO, it seems like Sejuan had demoted his position. He mumbles that Theo, being a reckless CEO, took a 4-day consecutive vacation and plans to make him the CEO again and raise his commission by 5% if he works hard. Theo gets happy and promises to work hard to reach the position he has lost. While conversing, Sejuan notices that the cat is talking in his grainier dialect, to which Theo asserts that he had decided to keep his accent, figuring out that humans like it and it helps to grab their attention. After that, our fella gets enthusiastic, knowing that now his name will be known to people in the dungeon. Listening to this, Theo gets jumbled and asks him what he's talking about. Sejuan confides in him by saying that the feature window reveals the name of the person who grew the tomatoes, which means he will become well known among the people of the dungeon. Getting to know this new information, a wave of tension hits Theo, and he gets panicked. After hearing about his thoughts of making his name in the dungeon, it seems like Theo is in some kind of trouble. It is revealed to us that rookie peddlers have a special feature that enables them to hide the supplier's names from the customers to prevent losing business and being a rookie merchant. It was mandatory for Theo not to disclose where the produce had come from. Similarly, while selling Sejuan's magic cherry tomatoes, his name was blurred in the feature window, depicting that his name was hidden. The people who had bought his items couldn't get to know his name because of that feature. Choosing whether he should hide this piece of information from Sejuan, he made up his mind and decided to keep it a secret, manifesting that his partner would get angry after knowing the stark reality. He feared he could be demoted to become an intern again, or, in the worst case, get fired. Struggling to hide the truth, anxious Theo implored for more cherry tomatoes and left for his next mission. But Sejuan insisted on taking a few days off, as he also had to get paid for the week too. Theo hastily grabbed the cherry tomatoes from the wheelbarrow and tossed them into his rucksack. Theo thought of ways to undo the option that hides the grower's name and ascertained that there was only one way to do it, which was to reach 1,000 dungeon coins and upgrade to the intermediate peddler level. Say, they appreciated his hard work, while the Black Bunny suspiciously watched Theo as he left the cave to sell the items later. Dong-sik, the leader of the Phoenix Guild, was conversing with his members. As they were talking, Dong-sik received a notification on his smartphone, which was sent by his daughter, who expressed love for her father, telling him that her friends were jealous about the weight loss cherry tomatoes and requesting him to bring more of them. Tears of joy streamed down the father's face as the members asked him if he felt all right. He slurped his coffee and confessed that his cranky daughter, who was always stressed about weight loss, had told him that she loved him. Dong-sik proceeded to say that he only bought 20 of those magic tomatoes to let other members take the rest, regretting that he would have bought more of them if he knew that his daughter liked them so much. One of the members inquired about the tomatoes, asking if he bought these from a peddler, and let out that it's tragic how girls and women are obsessed with weight loss. Upon hearing this, another member showed a living proof, as he revealed that his crush became his girlfriend after he gifted those magic tomatoes to her, showing off the picture with his girlfriend in everyone's faces. Then, one of the members notified that he still had a few of those magic tomatoes. The other members freaked out, asking him to sell them the rest of the cherry tomatoes he'd left. But one of them demanded to buy those magic items, saying that he would pay 1,001 each. I mean, people are going crazy over those tomatoes, and it looks like men have found their way to get a girlfriend in the easiest way. Dong Sik announced, "Summon all members of the guild. We head to the 38th floor of the dungeon." The members objected, recalling that the leader had called them a few days ago. Just then, Jessica, along with 2 other girls, arrived. They wore slim-fit clothes, trying to hide the fact that she was there to buy tomatoes. She agreed to go along for the dungeon exploration. As Dong Sik and the girls moved along, he thought, "I'll buy those magic tomatoes and be my daughter's hero." It seemed their hidden purpose was to buy those cherry tomatoes. The scene shifted to the dungeon, where Theo was concerned. He thought about earning 1,000 dungeon coins, which seemed far-fetched. Can I even fit 1,500 tomatoes at once? He calculated, if I travel back and forth 10 times to sell these, I can earn that amount. Theo stopped stressing about making money and looked around for the place he had sold his items last time. The hunters had gathered at the same spot. Abruptly, they spotted the peddler cat. They were happy to see Theo. The cat questioned, "Were you hunters looking for me?" The guild member spoke up. "We've been waiting for you for the past 3 days, unsure when you'd return." They asked him about the magic cherry tomatoes. Proud Theo wondered if they had been waiting so long for the items. One of the members reminded Theo about the earlier price of 0.05 dungeon coins per tomato. But this time, the cat wanted a bigger amount and refused to sell them at the same price. He excitedly announced, "The prices have increased." Upon hearing this, the members panicked, protesting about the drastic increase in prices. But Theo didn't back down and set a new price, 0.07 dungeon coins. As soon as he said it, he wondered if the price was too high. To his surprise, the hunters were convinced and asked for the magic tomatoes. Outrage erupted among the members as there was a sudden increase in demand. Meanwhile, 2 members whispered about the suspiciously low price of these magic items. There's a high chance we'll never get to buy them again. The rising demand for the cherry tomatoes became frantic. People asked for 200 tomatoes at once. Another customer claimed to buy 500 magic tomatoes in one go. Eventually, Theo sold out all 1,500 items he had brought, despite raising the price. After Theo sold out, Dong Sik approached him. "The peddler cat, when will you visit this dungeon floor again?" he asked. "We will be waiting here again." The cat answered the hunter, "I will be back in around 10 days. He thought 10 days was accurate enough to give them enough time to wrap up a hunting tour and fix things up. Dong Sik informed the cat they would come to buy tomatoes. The leader of the guild returned to the members and announced, "We have to subjugate spiders as fast as possible and leave the towers by the end of the day." After that, Theo wondered, "At this rate, I can easily make 1,000 dungeon coins." He got thrilled to become an intermediate peddler. That would help him disclose the grower's name and become a CEO again. However, his moment of contemplation was interrupted by a group of girl hunters who approached Theo. Kitty, they greeted Theo. They noticed that he looked similar to a cat they knew. Rudely, the peddler made it clear, "My name is Theo." The girl, introducing herself as SUA, apologized to him. Theo then asked her, "Does my appearance remind you of someone?" Sua agreed, but Theo informed her, "You must have been mistaken, because there's no other cat in the world as adorable as me." He left the girl speechless as the good-looking peddler got back on his way. SUA stopped him, taking something out of her handbag. It turned out to be cat treats that SUA offered to him, but he refused to take them. "I only like grilled fish," he uttered. But his decision changed in a second when SUA squeezed some of the liquid into Theo's mouth, and he was mesmerized. He got hooked by the flavor, expressing that he had never tasted such a thing with rich flavors. The fishy, savory taste and a texture that just melts in the mouth. Getting addicted to this new cat treat, he asked SUA to give him more. But this time, she requested something in return. "Take a selfie with me, and you can get all the treats with different flavors," she asked the cat. He agreed to take a selfie with Sua to get his hands on those delicious sticks as soon as possible. She took a selfie with the adorable peddler cat and got his treats as promised. Theo then got back on the way, munching on a treat. One of the guild members was shocked at Sua, as she didn't expect her to bring treats to the tower. While Sua looked at her picture with Theo, she wished to see him again and was certain to come back to meet him again. The next scene flashes to the cave, where the sun is always bright. We see Black Bunny's bottom as he swims in the pond water. Black Bunny is on a swimming boot camp. He tries to swim hard in the water. The grown-up white bunnies watch this exciting swimming show. Uncle Sejuan gives Warrior Bunny some lessons. He instructs him to straighten his arms and keep the green onion board in front of him. Sejuan grows his confidence by complimenting him while teaching him how to swim. He makes sure to block the fish hole temporarily. He gets reminded of the incident that happened with Black Warrior Bunny that still frightens him. Our boy compliments Black Bunny for his great improvements from last time. We learn that earlier, Black Bunny carelessly dove into the pond, not knowing how to swim. Sejuan caught sight of the bunny floating on the water. He became panic-stricken, and the whole bunny family got traumatized. They witnessed Black Bunny lying unconscious on the surface of the water as the piranhas made their way to chew him up as a fresh treat. Reminded of this incident and how Black Bunny almost scared the hell out of him, Warrior Bunny gets more confident in swimming. So do the grown-up white farmer bunnies. One of them settles on a waterboard, holding a shovel as a paddle. One of them calmly basks in the sun, enjoying the coolness of the pond water. After playing in the water, Sejuan craves something sweet and pulls out a honey bottle from his bag. Peeking at the bottle, which now seems empty, he assumes that he must have finished the honey he collected last time. He stares up at the beehive and reckons that poisonous honeybees have been confined in that hive since she moved here, worrying if she is okay. Glancing at the beehive, Sejuan and Black Bunny notice something around it. To their surprise, it's a bunch of little honeybees swarming around the hive. It is revealed to us that they are baby poisonous honeybees. Alarmed by the sudden situation, our guy thinks of his little honeybee, clueless at what is happening in the cave. Nonetheless, he decides to greet the bees and takes a housewarming gift from his cherry tomato farm, picking up a flower to welcome them. Approaching the hive, our guy nervously welcomes the baby honeybees, calling upon his honeybee. However, the baby poisonous honeybees get furious and start buzzing loudly, chasing Sejuan and the bunnies. Freaked out, our guy is flustered and thinks about what is happening. He implores the baby bees to stop attacking them, shouting that they are not enemies as the angry bees fly towards the bunnies to attack them. The Black Warrior Bunny, with his hammer, gets ready to strike, but Sejuan halts him, instructing him not to engage. The angry bees get out of control, nearly attacking Sejuan and the bunnies. Suddenly, a big, beautiful honeybee appears out of the beehive, leaving everyone bewildered and flustered. Our boy encounters the honeybee, who is now a queen poisonous honeybee. She comes closer, along with the baby bees that surround her. Sejuan and the Black Bunny are left in awe, as they can't seem to believe their eyes. It is revealed that the poisonous honeybee is a carnivorous insect monster, hunting its prey with a venomous stinger. Meanwhile, Alien, the tower manager, is reading the dungeon administration book. She realizes that this manual in the library does not mention such a thing about the bees. Believing that no one's in danger, she still keeps an eye on Sejuan and the others who've encountered the queen bee from her crystal magic ball. She plans on discussing this matter with her dad later. In the cave, the queen poisonous honeybee and Sejuan, along with the bunnies, confront each other. Our guy is baffled, staring at the big and beautiful queen bee, asking her if she's the same cute little honeybee from before, with his mouth wide open. Our boy flatters the queen honeybee, saying that she looks different. It is narrated that the poisonous honeybee had been eating honey in Sejuan's cave, which caused changes in her body. As the bee continues to suck the honey from the flowers, she begins to release intense pheromones, putting on fat each day. When the bee had begun to be cautious of her, she figured out the reason. It comes about that she was capable of reproduction, and so she decides to leave the beehive in the forest and builds her beehive in Sejuan's cave, where she felt the safest. After days of suffering from intense pain and with her changes in body state, the bee transforms into a queen poisonous honeybee. Believing that it's the poisonous queen honeybee, our guy congratulates her on becoming a queen bee, despite thinking that it's an awkward time. He proceeds to give her the housewarming gift. Feeling overwhelmed, the queen bee hugs Sejuan out of sheer joy, clamping into a tight hug. The baby bees join her and cling on to our boy, pouring himself into the cuddles of cute honeybees. The friendly baby honeybees become playful with the bunnies, as they now seem to be together. After a few days, our boy seems deep asleep, but his moment of solace is short-lived when the bunny gang shakes him to the core, waking him up in a hurry, blabbering. Our boy hopes to get some sound sleep before the blue moon rises again. The bunnies walk him to the farm. Our dude, who is half asleep, gets dragged by them as they try to show him something. To his surprise, he notices a carrot with blue moon energy that had grown before its time. Thinking that it's premature, he decides to pull it out, realizing why the bunnies were making a fuss and rushing to him. He plucks out the blue carrot while the bunnies stare at it with admiration. As he harvests the carrot that looks as big as a vacuum flask, Sejun holds the long-awaited carrot that the bunnies have been waiting for. It unfolds that it's the agility carrot with blue moon energy grown in the dungeon. The carrot is full of nutrients and flavor, with the blue moon energy enhancing the flavor. The agility carrot increases magic by 0.005 points when consumed. Harvesting the carrot, Sejun gets plenty of rewards. While getting rewarded, he speculates that he had earned 70 XP points instead of 50 and wonders if it is because of the high-quality produce. Our boy then hands the carrot to their rightful and long-awaited owners, which are the bunnies, and appreciates them for their hard work and amazing partnership that he hopes to continue. With sparkle and love in their eyes, the bunnies stare at the carrot like it's some kind of a gem, eager to eat it. The sickle bunny enters the scene and is all revved up to flaunt his skills. The sickle bunny then slices the carrot breathtakingly, chopping it into accurate small pieces like a pro chef. As the bunnies grab their precise and perfectly chopped carrot pieces, Sejun applauds the sickle bunny and praises him for his chopping skills that made the carrot cut into evenly pieces in a blink of an eye. After that, our boy moves forward with the cherry tomatoes. Plucking the cherry tomatoes, he gets to harvest 5 cherry tomatoes with blue moon energy, offering them to the admin as she had asked for them last time. Receiving the blue cherry tomatoes, the admin appreciates Sejun, but the appreciation doesn't sit well with him, and he asks the tower manager to give him an ability next time. It seems like the admin is not giving any ability to him anytime soon, not feeling very generous. While convincing the admin to give him an ability, he hears a noise. It turns out to be Theo, who has returned from his sales mission. However, the baby honeybees don't welcome him at all. Furious, the baby honeybees attack Theo while he screams in fear, asking Sejun to help him. Thinking that Theo wasn't around when the bees were born, he realizes that the baby honeybees take him as an enemy. To stop the bees from attacking Theo, he grasps the cat in his arms and cuddles with him to make the bees understand that he is a family member. The bees go away. Our boy holds the cat close to him. He covers his face with Theo's fur. That makes him cough, but Theo does not get offended. Instead, he shows gratitude to Sejun, calling him bro. Noticing that the cat is talking casually to his boss, he stretches Theo's cheek, tolerating the pain. The cat lets out that Sejun called him family. He feels grateful about it, so he calls him bro, grabbing Sejun's cheek, the cat hand and the coin he earned from selling the items. He made 75 dungeon coins in total. To further shock his partner, Theo spills everything about his sales mission. He asserts how the humans waited for him to buy the magic cherry tomatoes. For that reason, he charged an extra 0.02 dungeon coins each. Upon hearing about his booming sales, Sejun does not even flinch. The cat hops in excitement, asking if he had done a great job. He implores to get his CEO position back. Not looking surprised at all, Sejun refuses to make him a CEO. He tells him to keep working as an intern and gives him his commission, which is 2 dungeon coins. Disappointed, the peddler cat, who had earned these coins with hard work, does not get promoted. He gets sad after receiving a little commission which he so does not deserve. Poor Theo becomes low-spirited, and the black bunny pats his head, trying to make him feel better. Later, we get to know that Sejun already knew that Theo had charged more for his items. The dungeon administrator had revealed this information to him with a sneaky smile. He plans on sharing more blue moon energy tomatoes to the tower manager next time, as she can come in handy at times. In the meantime, our dude catches a glimpse of Theo, who is enjoying his liquid cat treat and not a grilled fish. Curious, he asks Theo about the treat. The cat confesses that a human gave it to him for taking a selfie with her. He got these cat treats with different yummy flavors. The boy narrates there are 2 ways to get stuff from outside the dungeon, with the first being the vanishing method. A person can bring whatever is in his hands to the dungeon, just like he did when got sucked into the wormhole with a bag of veggies. normally getting summoned to the first floor after getting into the dungeon. The people can trade their belongings with items to climb the tower. The second way to get stuff from outside the dungeon is to have awakened hunters bring items upon their return to the tower. They can only bring a couple of pounds worth of stuff, but they can take an unlimited quantity of items outside the dungeon. Most hunters bring hunter smartphones, which are solar-powered, as the sun never sets in the dungeon, making it accessible to communicate on short distances. Hunter food, like fried kimchi snacks, and Hunter Square, which is a dungeon-only cigarette designed for smokers. Sejuan stumbled, lost in thought. There's a hunter who brings in something trivial, such as a cat treat. An idea flickered in his mind. It looked like our ingenious main character had come up with another business plan. Theo, thinking Sejuan was a genius, freaked out by his sneaky grin. Sejuan came up with another idea that included his so-called partner, Theo, who worked more like a slave for him. Theo offered him a cat treat. However, our guy made a bold move and confiscated all the cat treats that Theo got from the human. Snatching the cat's treats, Theo showed his true cat power and clung to Sejuan's shirt to get his treats back. I earned these treats by taking a selfie with a human, Theo yelled, trying to reason with him. Sejuan disclosed the reason for confiscating his treats. Theo, you earned these treats from a transaction. According to me, it's a clear violation of our contract. Clause 4 states that Party B, who is Theo, shall not attain additional clients without Sejuan's permission, who seems to be Party A. Theo realized that his partner was speaking the truth, which put him in trouble. The innocent peddler had no idea about this. However, our guy overlooked Theo's mistake, comforting him, "Don't be sad, so." Realizing that Theo had become CEO again, our guy let out, "This promotion is only for an hour, but I will think about extending it if you do a great job." He then grabbed Theo and settled him on his lap, while the bunnies served the two partners, bringing fishes to cook in the campfire. Our guy cuddled the CEO, giving him the boss treatment. Our boy offered him a treat, making him all comfy in his lap as they sat by the campfire, getting the exceedingly nice treatment he deserved. Theo seemed to be over the moon, assuming that is what the power of a CEO feels like. As Sejuan squeezed the treat into his mouth, feeling on top of the world, Theo pondered that it's the best thing ever that happened to him. While the cat got cuddled up, he wished to have some grilled fish. Sejuan started grilling the fish right away. As it all happened, Sejuan questioned him, "How did you make it to the 38th floor without fighting the monsters?" The cat answered, "I own a peddler certificate." Wondering about a peddler certificate, Theo flaunted his badge to him. He then explained that in order to get a peddler certificate, one must pay a high membership fee to keep his status. The higher the level, the higher the fee gets, and they get to enjoy more benefits. Moreover, the peddler certificate holders are permitted protection and many services from the association, adding that one of them is that the peddlers are free from monster attacks. Our guy asked him about bringing hunters here, but Theo refused and told him it's not possible. Covertly, the cat unfolds a secret. Peddlers use a pathway that's only for them. To use it, a peddler certificate is mandatory. He further reveals, this pathway is the only way to get here from the 38th floor in 5 days. Curious, Sejuan asks, which floor are we on? Theo, knowing the secret, exposes we're on the 99th floor of the tower. It seems Theo knew all along which floor the cave was on. After hearing this, Sejuan loses his cool, sitting as if he's going through a guilt trip. Theo asks, "What's the matter?" Sejuan speaks out, "I assumed I wasn't that far from the 38th floor because you, Theo, who couldn't use his waypoint like hunters, came back in 10 days. He seems shattered, but pulls himself together. Nothing has changed. Zoned out, Theo snaps him back to reality by grabbing his cheeks. He shakes his head and tells him, "Don't get distracted. Your fishes are burning. It's your weekly compensation treasure." Still surprised, Sejuan grills the fish, contemplating, hunters have only discovered the 40th floor of the dungeon, yet I'm stuck on the 99th floor. He thinks of giving up on leaving the tower. Interrupting his depressing thought, Theo instructs, "Grill the fishes better. Don't burn them this time." But Sejuan stops, mumbling, "I stopped being CEO an hour ago." Theo lets out a deep sigh. Another idea flickers in Sejuan's head. Keenly eyeing Theo's peddler badge, Sejuan ponders using it to become a peddler himself. The scene then switches. On another floor of the dungeon, hunters barely have any food. All they have left is hope to escape alive. There are too many monsters for them to return safely with the injured. The hunters are despairing about the situation when two peddlers, with a nice get-up, arrive with a bag full of items. "Do you need help?" they ask. The two turn out to be famous peddlers in the dungeon, Sejun Park and his friend, Theo, the yellow cat. The hunters recognize them right away, believing these two really find lost hunters in the tower. With a bag of food items such as sweet potatoes, cherry tomatoes, and green onions, they sell the items to the hunters, earning plenty of dungeon coins. However, this whole scenario turns out to be Sejun's pretentious thought. It seems like the poor guy doesn't even know that his name as a grower cannot be revealed to the hunters or any other person who buys his items. Sejun clenches his fist, getting all fired up by his far-fetched thoughts. He calls upon Theo to ask him if he can become a peddler too. But the fire of hope in Sejun's belly gets subdued when Theo bombards him with another secret. People who belong from outside the dungeon can never become peddlers. Those born in the dungeon, like Theo himself, can become peddlers. Theo gives a scornful laugh at him for not knowing this information. Poor guy lets his guard down again, melting into a breakdown. To tease him, Theo tells him not to be jealous of him, because he can never become a peddler. Suddenly, Sejun starts shaking as the anger inside him boils up. He grabs his hair in frustration and begins shouting like a madman, cursing the dungeon for doing that to him. While the bunnies are working on the farm, they hear him screaming frantically as he goes through an emotional breakdown. His scream echoes in the dungeon as the admin, who seems to enjoy her tomato skewers, stops for a second, speculating if she had heard noise. Finally, he stops being an anxious wreck and calms his nerves down. All the bunnies and bees unearthly stare at him, and poor Theo, who creeps out from his frantic voice, jumps over Black Bunny's head. Our boy, who has been through a lot, gives it a deep thought and reckons nothing will change as he chose this path for himself for raiding into the tower. Uninvited and lashing out won't help him correct his mistakes. He accepts his fate and decides to spend his rest of life in the dungeon. That's all for today. For the next part, make sure to subscribe my channel Fire Recap. And you don't forget to share and like the video. I am out.